One Piece Supreme Control, Chapter 201-220. Chapter 201 The Reason. Blue blue blue. Lanbas was angry that Doflamingo's group had disappeared, and the phone bug in his arms suddenly rang. Hey, Lanbas answered in a bad tone. Captain Lanbas, Doflamingo and his gang have escaped from this island, and they destroyed the pirate ship at our port. Shanchi's voice rang out quickly, making Lanbas' face pale a change. These bastards. Do you know where they went? Talos is tracking them. In addition, the captain hopes you can get 2 ships. We are going to track the group soon. Xianqi said. Understood, I won't let them go. Lanbas responded loudly, then hung up the phone quickly. Come on, that bastard Doflamingo has already left the port and ran away. He waved his hand angrily and quickly left here. Run, what should we do next? The team members were a little confused. Find 2 ships and go after them. Be fast, Lanbas said solemnly. The 2 teams divided the labor and cooperated. When the Lanbas team went to look for the ship, on Dylan's side, Talos had a beautiful crystal ball in his hand, and then this squinted man with a weird smile on his face. Guys, I started to chant a spell. Is Taros okay? He eats a crystal ball fruit, will he be able to fortune? A member of the team asked suspiciously. Haha, don't worry, Talos was born in a Luo sect since he was a child, these things are completely his life. Everyone stared at Taros, wanting to see how this weird team member worked. 10 teams and 10 captains, from among the 50,000 members, select the most powerful and comprehensive 12 team members to form the most backbone and powerful backbone crew members of the 10 teams, responsible for leading their respective teams. It can be said that each crew member is a very outstanding existence, each with its own characteristics. And this time, the team members that Dylan's personally selected are also very good guys among the crew. Talos was like a magic stick, his hands were constantly pushing towards the crystal ball, and he was chanting words that people couldn't understand. After a full quarter of an hour, under the icy eyes of Dylan's, under the expectation of everyone, a ship traveling in the sea appeared in their eyes. Appeared, the guy with sunglasses standing on the bow is Doflamingo. Talos really caught them out, ha ha ha, amazing. Go, pack them up, and avenge the captain. At this moment, Taros opened his eyes, the crystal ball suddenly floated up, the ship quickly became smaller, and the scenery inside became bigger. Forensic sea area, they seem to be heading towards the sea soldiers. Taros said suspiciously. Just figure out where they are, and they're ready to go. Where's Lanbas, aren't the 2 ships ready yet? Dylan said coldly, with undisguised killing intent flashing in his eyes. Just as he finished speaking, 2 small boats appeared at the port. The players looked a little disappointed. Such a small ship. Stop talking nonsense, get on the ship quickly, the mission is important. Dylan's waved, and the 12 walked towards the port quickly. Afterwards, the Dylan's team merged with Lanbas and others, and the 2 ships quickly drove on the sea, chasing Doflamingo. In the waters of Florence. Doflamingo was standing at the bow of the boat, and behind him were many boring family members. How much longer, Dover, what are we going to do this time? Go to the sea soldiers, there is a very good thing to do. Brother Doflamingo showed a smile in his eyes. The family members were puzzled, but they didn't ask any more. They knew what the young master didn't want to say, so it would be better not to ask any more. Soon, time passed, and half a day passed. It's coming soon. Doflamingo's eyes flashed. According to the information, the ships that the Navy paid tribute this time must pass here. Stop the boat and wait. Doflamingo gave an order, the boat stopped on the sea, then he turned around, his eyes flashed with cold light, and explained all the plans to do this time to everyone present. Half an hour later, everyone was ready to fight with surprise and excitement in their eyes. That is, if we succeed this time, Dover, will your plan succeed soon? Yes, if this plan is successful, with my identity, the sea soldiers have nothing to do with me, and I can also successfully become one of the Wuhai. With this identity, I can secretly do something big to deploy the future. Blue, this is a business that only makes money, ha 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 ha. Brother Doflamming said with a loud laugh. His eyes were full of dangerous light. This is a prosperous world. What is needed is a pirate with great spirit. No, it is powerful power. Everything is false, only power is real. About an hour later, in front of Doflamingo's ship, there appeared a vague group of warships, which looked like 5 or 6 ships, but judging from the style, these warships were not warships, but logistics ships that carry cargo. Ready for action, they're here, haha. Doflamingo stood up, laughed, and the ship set sail, heading for a fleet of warships in the distance. About 30 miles in the sea behind, 2 small boats are moving fast. It is the pursuit of Doflamingo. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. Dillons and Landbass. It's almost here. They have already encountered the Marines. Talos said loudly, looking at the crystal ball. The 2 teams immediately moved and looked forward, but the sea was vast and undulating, and there was no trace of Doflamingo for the time being. They actually went for the tribute from the sea soldiers. These people are really bold. Dillons's eyes flashed, and he pondered, what is it for, so that this kid, Doflamingo, is willing to take such a risk? Big risk. In the sea ahead. Doflamingo's group had already approached the naval fleet for 10 miles. At this time, the sailors also discovered this unidentified ship. When they saw the pirate flag floating on the top of its mast, the leading flagship was on the ship. The lieutenant general immediately changed color. All attention, there are pirates, prepare to fight. On the 5 transport ships behind them, almost instantly, hundreds of sailors raised their heads and were all ready for battle. The tribute to the Tianlong people is no trivial matter, and there is absolutely no problem. 10 seconds later, the 2 sides got closer, and the lieutenant general on the leading ship immediately changed color when he saw the identity of the person on the pirate ship on the opposite side. Doflamingo, it's them. After about 3 minutes, the 2 ships were already facing each other, and the navy did not hesitate at all. Attack, these arrogant pirates came after us. Smash them. And Doflamingo's group also laughed loudly in the sky. The plan is about to succeed. Chapter 202 The Shock of the Pirate Flag. The 2 sides approached quickly, and the navy's reaction was particularly sensitive, and the barrels were all aimed at Doflamingo's group. The pitch-black cannonball spewed flames and attacked the ships of Doflamingo's group, passing through the air with a loud and crisp sound. Shish! Thick white eyes filled up everywhere, and the battle started in an instant. Doflamingo laughed, and at the same time shot to cut off the shells. Cannonballs that can smash ships to pieces can't do anything to Doflamingo's group at all. The distance is getting closer and closer, and the pressure on the sailors is increasing, and the sweat on the forehead of the leading lieutenant general is covering his forehead. Lieutenant General, the shells can't hit them at all. The soldier behind him said loudly. I can see it. The lieutenant general looked gloomy. If the shells can't hit, then prepare for a head-to-head battle. Yes. One by one, the sailors put bayonets on the riflemen, and some people touched the swords behind their backs or their waists, and a cold light flashed in their eyes. They stood quietly on the boat, waiting for Doflamingo's group to approach. Several warships were connected end to end, leaning against each other, forming a long straight line. The sea soldiers in front and back can support each other in an instant, forming a long snake formation. Go, remember our purpose. Doflamingo waved his hand, and the family members behind him laughed loudly and jumped towards the Navy warship opposite. In an instant, the battle began. The members of the Doflamingo ship made an appointment with the Huchung warship, and the screams of killing sounded to the sky. Just for a moment, the two are fighting together. But it can be clearly seen that the Marines are not the opponents of Doflamingo and others, and they will be emptied in a large circle almost in an instant. Ho ha ho ha ho. Brother Doflamingo stretched out his hands and fingers, and the invisible threads quietly protruded out, controlling the Marines one by one and letting them fight each other. This strange scene caused shock to many sailors. They were horrified to see that their bodies were out of their control, and swung their swords towards their companions. The battle only lasted for half an hour, and a ship of seamen was almost cleaned up. The navy on both sides of the ship continued to support, but the situation could already be seen. The navy was completely at a disadvantage, and the lieutenant general with a livid face made a move with the members of Doflamingo's ship, then shifted his target and quickly moved towards Doflamingo. This hateful guy has killed so many excellent soldiers. The lieutenant was furious. He swung his sword vigorously, cut the silk thread that controlled the surrounding soldiers, and then slashed at Doflamingo, who was smiling evilly. Go! Yo-ha-ho-ha-ho! Brother Doflaming blocked the lieutenant general's blow with a smile on his face. If you take you down, will this battle be won? Damn, I won't let you succeed. The lieutenant general roared and slashed fiercely. Stupid mortals are born to be ruled and controlled by gods. Doflamingo fluttered away from the lieutenant general's attack with a contemptuous smile on his face. I, who inherited the blood of gods, were born to control you people. Destiny. In my eyes, you are nothing but a pawn that can be traded, a bargaining chip. His hands and 10 fingers trembled slightly, and the transparent silk thread stretched out, directly controlling the lieutenant general's body, making the latter's complexion change. Me, my body, the lieutenant general shouted with horror in his eyes and his mouth. Afterwards, under the control of Doflamingo, the lieutenant general swung his sword towards the surroundings, and in an instant, a dozen soldiers were chopped to the ground. This terrifying scene made the soldiers extremely terrified, and the tears in the lieutenant general's eyes instantly flowed down. He actually waved the butcher's knife at his lovely subordinates. Stop it, you devil! Doflamingo, stop! Ah, I'm going to kill you. Every word he shouted, the blood of the soldiers would be sprayed under the lieutenant general's knife, dyeing his eyes red, the blood soaked his robe, and the tears rolled down his face. Pain, great pain swept through the heart of the lieutenant general, and this scene of wielding a knife against his own people would leave an indelible impression in his heart. Ho ha ho ha ho! Doflamingo's sunglasses flickered, and he looked up to the sky and laughed. Did you see it? This is the power of the gods. You can only accept the control of the gods, and you are born in a cage. Birds. Whatever I tell you to do, you have to do it. The 10 fingers trembled slightly, the light under the lieutenant general's knife flashed, and there were 5 more corpses on the deck, and the blood slowly flowed out. Around the lieutenant general, a large number of Marines retreated in horror, looking at the uncontrolled lieutenant general in the field. Their eyes were full of panic and doubts, and they kept running around. At this moment, their hearts completely collapsed. 3 minutes later, the surroundings of Doflamingo were empty except for the corpse and the lieutenant general. He narrowed his eyes, then smiled. Enough of the fun. Then it's time to get down to business. His fingers trembled slightly, and under the control of the lieutenant general, he took out the phone in his arms tremblingly. What are you going to do? The lieutenant general had collapsed at the moment and asked loudly, his eyes full of sadness and panic. What to do? Doflamingo laughed. Do a righteous thing, let me walk to the edge of justice, and stay away from evil things. Perhaps, in the near future, you will still be grateful to me. The lieutenant general's hand was out of control and stretched out towards the phone bug, just as he was about to make a call. His eyes suddenly stared, and Doflamingo's group all looked at the distant sea horizon. The sea breeze is hunting, where to? This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. A small pirate ship was coming fast. The pirate flag at the top of the mast shook violently, and the sickle and skeleton on the skull flag made everyone present tremble. Even the cold sweat on his back came out, and goosebumps appeared all over his body quickly. That pirate flag. Who can tell me why there are traces of them here again? Death pirates, that's their pirate flag. The seamen screamed in horror. Compared to Doflamingo, they didn't want to encounter this group of people. Compared to this group of people, Doflamingo is as safe as a kitten curled up in the corner. The world-famous evil, why is he here? The lieutenant general also tightened his eyes, completely shocked. None of the people on the boat have seen it yet, but it was just the pirate flag, but everyone present stopped what they were doing, and there was no change. This is the shock and awe, the shock of the pirate flag. Chapter 203 The Shield of Protection. The pirate flag that was getting closer and closer in the distance fluttered in the wind, and the sickle and skull flag fluttered in the wind, looking extremely ferocious and evil. But at this moment, it exudes endless domineering, as if it can overwhelm all forces. The fighting Doflamingo's group and the navy all stopped at this moment. They each held a group and stared at the two pirates cautiously and solemnly, their hearts filled with heavy hearts. In a short period of time in the New World, the Death God pirates have accumulated a considerable amount of power, and even the Marines dare not underestimate them. Especially in this open sea, encountering the Death God pirates, not to mention the cadre level, is a small team that is extremely terrifying. The pirate group that was fighting everywhere, and the pirate crew members that they conquered, all existed in the world before, and they were not unknown people. With the reputation of the Death God group at this moment, they suddenly appeared here, and both parties became nervous. Is it coming towards us? The bite is really tight. A ray of light reflected from Doflamingo's sunglasses, and his eyes were full of sharpness. Behind him, the members of the Don Quixote family quickly gathered together, staring closely at the pirate ship coming here. It can be clearly seen that the purpose of the two pirate ships is to undoubtedly wait for them. How did they find us? Who knows? Get ready to fight, this group of people is definitely here to make trouble. Doflamingo said gloomily. Aren't we going? At this time, it's not appropriate to confront them head-on. Let's go. It's too late. Brother Doflamingo's eyes flickered. How could he not know that he couldn't confront this group of people head-on at this moment? Doflamingo, who has fought several times, knows the strength of this group of people very well. If it is a captain-level existence, anyone can fight against him. Even if you can't beat him, it won't be much worse. Moreover, the most powerful place for this group of people is not the courage to fight alone, but the terrifying force. Two pirate ships. Lanba's eyes were full of killing intent. He raised his fists vigorously, and shouted loudly, "Brothers, tear them apart for me soon." "You're welcome." Shout. "No problem, boss." The members of the 10th Division have high fighting spirit, and the fighting spirit in their eyes is sky high. Dillons looked at Doflamingo on the warship, his eyes flashing. "This time, I won't let you go again, Doflamingo." What a long time before this encounter was ushered in. How could Dillons be willing to give up this opportunity? This time, even if he pursued to the ends of the earth, he would never let go of this hateful fellow Doflamingo again. "Captain, I think our team can easily settle them. Although we don't belong to any official team, there is no doubt that our team's combat effectiveness is also extremely powerful." Behind him, Taros said with a smile. The crystal ball in his hand exudes a colorful light. "Get ahead of them and destroy the enemy," Dillons said coldly. "No problem. It's easy and casual. That junk, it's easy." The members of the Dillons team looked relaxed and murderous in their eyes. At this time, the two parties on the warship finally saw the people on the opposite ship, and they immediately narrowed their eyes. "Good guy, such a person is here." The lieutenant general looked at Dillons and Lanbas in shock. "Deputy captain, actually here." The lieutenant general immediately began to think about the purpose of this group of people here. These big men have nothing to do and will never come here. Then, after glancing at the faces of Doflamingo and their group, the lieutenant general made a judgment. They came for Doflamingo. This guy has offended the death gods. Now, it's fun. The lieutenant general is a little gloating about the misfortune that his own side has been killed so badly. Even at this moment, he is still under the control of the other party. The resentment in his heart can be imagined. "Doflamingo, you can't escape." The distance is very close, and they can clearly see each other. Lanbas shouted loudly, and the strong overlord color covering his body, directly shocked all the weak-willed sailors on the opponent's ship to the ground. "Lanbas, terrible guy," the lieutenant general said in shock. The terrifying domineering spread to all directions, and even cracks appeared on the masts and walls of the warship, and the air became a lot thicker in an instant. Brother Doflamingo flashed light on his sunglasses, his eyes widened, and the domineering arrogance that was not weak also swept out, competing with the latter. We actually dispatched 2 cadres and a group of terrifying backbone crew members. I have to say, you really didn't underestimate me, Brother Doflamingo said with a wicked smile. I underestimate you? No, I don't have you in my heart at all. I'm here just to crush your bones. Landbass laughed fiercely, and the crew behind him laughed out loud, expressing their sincerity. Flamenco's disdain. The expressions of the members of the Don Quixote family changed, and they all clearly felt the strong killing intent in each other's words. This time, if they can't fight against each other, it will definitely not end well. Dillons looked indifferent and stepped out. I don't have time to talk nonsense with him, kill him and go back. Yes, shouted the crew behind him. Then the next moment, a faint force of space spread on Dillon's ship, and the 12 people disappeared at the same time. When he reappeared, he was already in front of Doflamingo. In this scene, Landbass and this chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. The expressions of Dover and the others changed. This guy actually took the lead. Landbass shouted, "Quick, get over there. His head belongs to me, Landbass." The pirate ship moved quickly and leaned towards the other side. As soon as Dillons and others got on the boat, at the same time as they appeared, Doflamingo's group contracted their pupils and reacted. Their response was also very quick and decisive. Without any hesitation, they launched an attack. Dozens of people attacked almost instantly. The neat and tacit cooperation made the Dillons team immediately raise their hearts. In an instant, more than a dozen swords crisscrossed, and continuous gunshots came out, reaching the top of the Dillons team. Everyone, let me protect you. If you want to pass, please step on my corpse. A sturdy figure stepped out directly and stood in front of everyone. Guardian shield. A semicircular shield immediately appeared in front of the Dillons team, and it quickly became larger. It was 15 meters long and wide, blocking everyone's bodies behind. It looked solid and looked very secure. Almost at the same time, a series of attacks fell on this hard shield. Chapter 204 Puppet. Bang 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 bang. Sparks radiated in all directions, and all attacks were strictly blocked from this shield. The members of the Don Quixote family were stunned for a moment. The next moment before they could react, the shield was suddenly withdrawn, and then 11 figures rushed over quickly. Launched his own attack, and the battle began between Lightning and Flint. The 11 team members found their opponents in an instant, and then they fought together. Their strength is amazing, and they are in a state of suppression for a moment when they fight with members of the Don Quixote family. When Doflamingo saw Dillons, his pupils suddenly shrank. I have not dealt with Dillons once or twice. The last time the two met was in the Chambord Islands. In that battle, Doflamingo was impressed by Dillons' terrifyingness. At this moment, he stared at the latter closely, and almost suddenly, he lost the other person's figure in his eyes. What about people? Doflamingo was extremely solemn. Huh. The dagger appeared suddenly, and a figure came directly behind Brother Doflamingo. Fast, unbelievably fast, too fast for anyone to react to. Teleport, like teleportation. The icy dagger blade appeared on Brother Doflamingo's neck, causing the former's eyes to tremble, and there was sweat on his forehead. You know what? I've wanted to kill you for a long time. Dillons's voice sounded softly, and a slight breath blew on the back of Doflamingo's neck, causing goosebumps on his back. Today, there is no escape. This is the scythe of the god of death. The moment you swing it out, you are doomed to die. No matter how much you resist, it is useless. Brother Doflamingo's eyes were sharp and his eyes narrowed fiercely. Really? He said with a grin. Before he finished speaking, Dillons's dagger trembled slightly and cut directly past. The cold light suddenly appeared, and the space was slightly distorted. Bang! The heavy impact sounded, and Brother Doflamingo's right hand fiercely supported the dagger that Dillons cut down, and the fine silk thread stretched out to bind the dagger. Sure enough, it's not that easy to deal with. Doflamingo said with a solemn smile. His elbows were wrapped in a domineering black-armed collar, and Doflamingo rudely slammed towards the rear. Bang! Dillons took the elbow directly with his right hand, and then his palm opened, his eyes sharpened. Space bondage. Buzz. The space in front of him seemed to be frozen, and Doflamingo's expression changed, and he found that he couldn't move at all. He looked at the dagger raised again in his eyes, and his eyes were full of fierceness and fierceness. Using all his strength, Brother Doflamingo wanted to break free from this terrifying force, but he remained motionless. He seemed to be squeezed by space, and the enormous pressure made it difficult for him to move at all. Call. The light wind blew, and the sharp blade of the dagger slashed directly at Brother Doflamingo's neck. In the stunned eyes of everyone, Doflamingo's neck was so easily erased by Dillons. They clearly saw that the neck that was connected to the head was brutally cut open at this moment and fell towards the rear, with only a trace of flesh and blood connected. It looked extremely terrifying, so scared that their eyes tightened and their hearts were beating violently. Dillons. It was resolved so quickly. This time is over, mad, it's not good for labor and capital. Lambas stood on the bow, watching this shocking scene. He waved his fist fiercely, his eyes were full of unwillingness. The crew members behind him also looked at each other in dismay, not expecting the battle to end so soon. Is this the end? This guy is too weak. No, it should be that Vice Captain Dillons is too strong. His space power, ordinary pirates, don't even have the power to resist. Anyway, the captain has no way to go back to make a deal, ha ha ha. Bang! The laughing team member was beaten hard, and Lambas roared angrily, "You are still in the mood to laugh, it's my mission." At this moment, whether it was Death, Don Quixote, and the Marines, they all thought that Doflamingo was dead. Yes, no one can survive having their neck cut off, no exception. The lieutenant general watched the battle on the field and swallowed quietly. The rhythm of the fast fighting with that hand rising and falling, put a lot of pressure on his heart. These two people are extremely terrifying people. Of course, there is no doubt that the gloomy Dillons is stronger. Dead, so fast. The lieutenant general was shocked by such a quick solution to the battle. But at the next moment, the figure sitting cross-legged hidden in a corner laughed gloomily. Are you quite patient? His fingers trembled inexplicably, and at the same time, the lieutenant general's complexion changed, the knife in his hand swung suddenly, and his pace quickened. In just a few steps, he came to Dillons's back, and then swung his knife outrageously. The strong wind blew Dillons' black hair, and Dillons, whose hair was blown by the knife wind, flickered, and then turned sharply. The long knife swung down, only slashing towards Dillons face to face. The latter's expression was indifferent, and his eyes were calm and terrifying. The long sword is as fast as lightning, and the power and speed of a lieutenant general's sword are absolutely incredible. Deputy Captain. At this moment, someone in the Dillons team exclaimed. Humph! It's not dead. Lambas snorted angrily. Come close, get close to them, I'll catch that mouse. The team members hurriedly rowed the boat, but they didn't care about Dillons' safety. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. On the boat, the lieutenant general was sweating profusely and his eyes panicked. The knife had already reached Dillons's forehead, cutting off every strand of hair. Seeing the color. At this moment of shock, Dillons's whole body trembled, his body twisted at an unbelievable angle, and the long knife slammed down, passing him by the slightest. Woo! The lieutenant general breathed a sigh of relief. If he really hacked to death the deputy captain of the Death God pirates under the control of others, he could not imagine what kind of troubles would be caused. However, at the next moment, he saw the figure standing up slowly behind Dillons, and his eyes were full of shock. Huh! Dillons's eyes moved, and he noticed the look in the lieutenant general's eyes. Then he turned around, and saw Brother Doflamingo, whose neck he had erased, was laughing loudly, waving towards a claw, and the colorful silk threads continued to lengthen. On his neck, there are all kinds of shining lines. It turned out to be a puppet. Chapter 205 Pika. The front is Doflamingo's long line attack that shines like a sharp blade, and the back is the Lieutenant General's slashing. Dylan's front and back were shrouded in terrifying attacks, but the expression on his face did not change. The only thing that changed was the fierce killing intent in his eyes, which was even sharper. At this moment, Dylan's actually didn't care about the attack of the Lieutenant General behind him, and faced Doflamingo head-on. He stepped forward, raised one hand, the power of space emanated, and then his right hand trembled slightly. Space smash. Scratch. The space was shattered, and the expression on the face of the grinning puppet in front of it suddenly condensed. Then, everyone saw the flat space with a radius of 3 meters, which shattered with a bang, and the puppet turned into foam and was thrown out. At the same time, the Lieutenant General's long knife had also reached Dylan's back, but just 3 inches away from his back. There was a sound of broken lines, the Lieutenant General trembled, and the long knife was in Dylan's back. Stop behind. Yes, I'm saved. The Lieutenant General's face was covered in sweat, and he stood there in a daze and didn't dare to move. At the same time, the landbass group, who had already arrived in front of the pirate ship, jumped up from the pirate ship. They were in the air and were more than 2 meters tall. Landbass, who was like a hill, was vicious. Shouted, "Tiger and lion strike, shake the ground." Clenching one hand, he suddenly swung it towards the warship ahead. Landbass's keen sense of sight noticed that there was a sneaky mouse on the warship. Buzz. A wave of air waved out from his right fist, turning into a roaring liger, roaring towards the warship. Boom. This punch directly smashed the warship into 2 halves at the waist, and the 2 ends were raised to the sky, and it began to sink in an instant. The sailors on it panicked and ran around. At the same time, a figure in the dark changed his face and jumped towards the sky. The wide feathered robe and the pitch-black sunglasses shining in the sun were none other than Doflamingo himself. "Where are you going? Your head belongs to me, Landbass." Landbass was angry like a lion, roaring to the sky. Doflamingo chased after him. Bang! Behind him, a man in a black suit, with smoke from the muzzle, looked a little surprised. "He was able to dodge my blow even in the sky. This kid is unusual." In the sky, Doflamingo's body is getting taller and taller, and his expression is gloomy. "Did you get caught out? And those people below, all of them are not simple characters. No matter how arrogant he is, and he is confident in his ability, at this moment, he is also beating a drum in his heart. Such a lineup may not necessarily escape. Today, it's troublesome." Below, Dylan saw a roar of a warship in front of him, and then a figure soared into the sky. His eyes narrowed instantly, then returned to its original state, stepped towards 1 foot, and disappeared in place. With the wave that appeared again, Dylan's came to Doflamingo's eyes, punched the latter with a vortex-shaped space force, and slammed the latter with a strong-armed domineering. Doflamingo narrowed his eyes. His fists were covered with white lines, and above the white lines were dark-armed colors, and then he punched Dylan's to greet him. Bang! In the sky, the 2 of them backed away, staring at each other with some solemnity. "This kid, it's so hidden." Dylan's was a little surprised. He didn't expect Doflamingo to have such power. Space smash. With a punch, the space in front of him was constantly rubbed, and Doflamingo's face changed, and an invisible thin line was secretly shot. Empty road. Almost instantly, Brother Doflamingo appeared in front of Landbass, who came from below. After the latter was surprised, he gave a wicked smile in his hideous expression. Foot shave. A sharp attack descended directly and kicked towards Landbass. In a matter of seconds, it was in front of Landbass. Landbass's eyes narrowed, his hands in front of him. Bang! The airflow scattered, and Landbass was directly knocked down by this kick, falling towards the sea. This power. The moment Landbass was hit, his expression changed slightly. He never imagined that Doflamingo, who was not yet famous at the moment, would have such power, which was beyond his expectations. After Doflamingo's attack hit Landbass, he continued to charge towards the sea, causing huge waves and gathering whirlpools. The battle over the sea was beyond everyone's expectations. The unknown Doflamingo had such power. I underestimate you. Dylan slowly disappeared, and when he reappeared, the power of space above his fist condensed, and then he slammed towards the back of Doflamingo in front of him. Serial boxing. Smash space. Bang 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 bang. In an instant, Dylan's couldn't count how many punches he had punched. At this moment, the space of a radius of 100 meters was almost shattered, and the terrifying power of space swept through Doflamingo's whole body, causing his complexion to change greatly. Almost instantly, countless bloodstains appeared on his body. Sharp cuts filled the entire space at this moment. Looking into the sky from below, in the space of 100 meters, it was distorted in confusion, and grid-like lines began to appear, and space was separated from space. Die, bastard! Dylan's yelled. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. The final punch. Buzz. The space within 100 meters was chaotic, turned into distortion, and began to stir like a vortex. It didn't disappear until 5 seconds later. Drops of blood fell from the sky and landed on the sea. Hoo hoo hoo. Dylan's gasped. Such an attack was extremely cohesive. He shattered the 100-meter space, and it cost a lot of money. Cough cough. On a warship below, a painful cough sounded. Dylan's turned his head sharply, and his eyes shrank immediately. Doflamingo. I don't know when. This person has already arrived on the warship. His robes were shattered, ragged, with bloodstains all over his body. His sunglasses had long been broken, and he looked terrible. He seemed to be unable to stand up straight when he stood there, but what he could see was that he was still alive and violent in Dylan's. With one hit, he escaped. Breaking the mountain, banging the mountain. Landbau's roar sounded, and the next moment, everyone saw a boxing that filled the entire sky, with anger, like a meteorite falling, hitting the place where Doflamingo was. Young master. An exclamation came out, and when Doflamingo was stunned, a tall figure directly threw him to the ground, pressing him firmly under him. Then, a meteorite fell, and the warship smashed into pieces. Poof. The red blood sprayed onto Brother Doflamingo's cheeks, causing his pupils to suddenly shrink at this moment. Pika. Chapter 206 Dead. At this moment, Landbas descended from the sky like a roaring lion, stepping on the debris of the warship. He was like a rainbow and roared again and again. Doflamingo, die! The huge warship sank slowly. Doflamingo's face was gloomy. He slowly stood up, and pushed Pika away from him. The chill in his eyes was even worse than the snow and ice in winter. When he stood up and saw Pika lying on the warship beside him, his pupils could not help shrinking slightly. The blood man, the tall Pika, has completely become a blood man, lying there like a gossamer. One foot has already entered the gate of hell. Without any emotional ups and downs, Doflamingo's ragged feather coat swayed in the breeze. He stretched out his hand, took off the sunglasses from his eye sockets, and threw it on the ground, just in Pika's blood. In the pooled blood, there was a splash of blood red. Brother Doflamingo did not have the anger that appeared in his heart because of the death of his companion. If he was thinking at this moment, it was a little regret. Such a good tool, my family, is going to die. Stepping over Pika's body, Doflamingo kicked a slash at the rushing Landbas. The thick slash cut through the air, causing Landbas' complexion to change, and he punched out. Buzz. The air suddenly thinned. Landbas' boxing skills were quite domineering, and he smashed the slash directly, leaving his momentum unabated, heading towards Doflamingo. The latter's eyes narrowed, and his figure suddenly became faster. He was almost it turned into a ray of light, directly dodging the fist of Landbas, and came to its front, and then the white silk threads behind him surged like waves. Huh! Landbas saw the large area of white silk thread, especially the domineering armed color at the tip, and his pupils contracted slightly. This guy has reached the stage of fruit awakening. His body trembled, and he grew taller again, turning into a tiger and lion body, and his strength increased greatly. Doflamingo's blade-like silk thread rushed towards him, turning into a sharp object harder than steel, and poking directly at Lanba's body. Bang 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 bang. Lanbas trembled. The trembling, the huge force, and the sharp silk thread made his complexion change slightly. This kid, I really underestimated him. Stepping forward, Lanbas carried these attacks forward, and then he swung out his fists, and the bursting breath swept through like a gust of wind. Brother Doflamingo narrowed his eyes, jumped suddenly, and rose to the sky. At this moment, Brother Doflamingo lost any arrogance and domineering before, but calmly seemed to be a different person. After Pika fell, the blood on his face seemed to indicate that he had changed a person, and every move was unbelievably calm. Even his power seems to have undergone some kind of transformation, and it has advanced a level. Flexibly dodging Lanba's attack, Doflamingo was like a leaf in the wind, immune to the aftermath of any attack. Using his strength to confront a very character like Lanbas head-on would definitely be his own death, but if he just avoided it, Lanbas would have no choice. On the contrary, when Diao Kong is in the air, Doflamingo's slender, needle-like body can still give him a few strokes from time to time. Although she has rough skin and thick flesh, she doesn't care about these things at all, but after more, Lanbas is annoyed. At this moment, Dylan's figure suddenly appeared behind the two of them. With a gloomy expression on his face, he stepped forward. The cold killing intent swept out, making the air suddenly cold. Doflamingo's expression changed slightly, becoming more solemn. He had already tried his best to deal with a Lanbas. This madman's attack turned the surrounding warships into ruins, and a large number of sailors hugged the deck in horror and swam into the distance. The scale of the battle between the two was huge, spreading to 400 or 500 meters around. Protect the young master. At this moment, the members of the Don Quixote family rushed towards here regardless of their safety. They even preferred to be attacked by their opponents, and they attacked here with all their might. This scene made everyone in the Dylan's team stunned for a moment, a little surprised. Dylan's eyes flashed, and the next moment, a crew member of the Don Quixote family appeared in front of him. The right hand trembled slightly, and the power of space radiated out, filling the front, space bondage. The crew member's running action stopped suddenly. Dylan's easily swung the dagger, and with a pop, blood flowed, and the figure fell down. Immediately afterwards, the crew one after another ran towards Dylan's, and they fought their lives to keep Doflamingo alive. Dylan's footsteps were slowed down, and it would take some time to kill these people. When 30 seconds passed, a dozen corpses were placed in front of Dylan's, blood was flowing. His expression was stern, without the slightest fluctuation, and the robes on his body were stained red with blood. Wei Wei's footsteps paused, and Dylan's continued to move forward, and 3 seconds later came behind Doflamingo. Compared to your crew, you are really a piece of trash, Doflamingo. Dylan spit out words full of murderous intent. Ho 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 ho, isn't it? Brother Duofu Langming's expression changed slightly, and he said with a smile, he glanced slightly at the sky, where a large piece of dark clouds were drifting towards here. It seems that the sky is endless. My way. Surrounded by two world-famous big pirates, Brother Doflaming doesn't seem to be worried, and he still has the time to chat with them. Do you really want to kill me? Unfortunately, I'm going to let you down. Are you provocative? Dylan's took a step forward and disappeared suddenly. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. Boy, you are too arrogant. You are facing the captain of the 10th Division of the Death God Pirates, Tiger Lion, Lanbas. Lanbas roared and launched an attack. Boom. Doflamingo leapt high, dodging Lanbas' attack. The frantic attack shattered the warship directly, and at the same time, Dylan's voice sounded behind him. Space bondage. His face changed slightly, and Doflamingo's whole body tightened, unable to move. Just fight you. Brother Doflaming's eyes narrowed and he chose to fight hard. Space smashing. Dylan's punched above the vortex and spun, and then slammed down. Bang, cracked. The sky shattered suddenly, like glass, and Doflamingo's figure began to twist and separate in everyone's eyes. That's it. Doflamingo's eyes widened, and he used all his strength to break free. But at the same time, Lana Boss below, punched out, and roared into the sky. Shit, go to hell. Your head, I took it. Brother Doflamingo, his face changed suddenly. Chapter 207 Lonely. The successive blows and pressures fell on Doflamingo, making the latter simply unable to cope. At this moment, he was not only facing Dylan's terrifying space fruit attack, but more importantly, Lanba's terrifying boxing technique that could smash warships. If the two are combined, if they are strong, Doflamingo will not die or be disabled. Fight! The proud Doflamingo also had such a day. The silk threads all over his body rushed out mightily, densely packed, and began to resist the shattering power of space. Dylan's expression changed slightly, and his eyes became more gloomy. The power of space has a more violent output, and the shattered space area is also larger. Go out for Lao Su. Brother Doflaming roared. The white silk threads formed 8 sturdy claws, which actually directly opened the space and sent his body out of the area. The fine blood beads fell from his body, and the power of space was sharp to the point of terrifying, slashing and scratching Doflamingo's whole body, causing his whole body to be injured, as if it had been cut by thousands of swords. But he survived, and that's all that matters. After he stepped out of Dylan's space-smashing area, he was faced with another violent punch from Lanbas, which was condescending, like Thor's fury, roaring again and again. Fighting hard. Brother Doflamingo looked crazy and chose to fight hard. The 8 white claws directly covered his front, tightly wrapping his body without leaking any gaps. At the same time, the opposite Lanbas let out a roar, and the roar came far away. Tiger and Lion King Fist, dominate the world. The fists collided suddenly, and then the fists came out together, and the terrifying fluctuations set off huge waves and slammed out. Call. The gust of wind wrinkled, and there was a terrible wave on the sea. The big wave rolled up and rolled towards the sea horizon that was invisible in the distance. At this moment, countless sailors screamed and were sent flying. Lanbass's boxing was terrifying to a level. And only at this moment did the loud bang come out. Boom! The attack, which was even more terrifying than the cannonball, rumbled and shattered the ground on which the 3 stood. Under the wrapping of the 8 sturdy giant claws, Doflamingo continued to spit out blood, and the luster in his eyes dimmed a lot. Suffered devastating damage. I am still alive. Doflamingo's eyes were crazy and hot. He was seriously injured, yes, but he was still alive. Alive, he still has hope. Empty road. The white silk thread took off at a very fast speed, and then connected with the clouds that had already drifted in the sky. The white silk thread in front of Brother Doflaming suddenly shattered, and then Dylan's and Lanbas saw the sky, soaring into the sky, constantly stepping in the sky, getting higher and higher. Further and further. Goodbye, my family. Doflamingo was condescending, blood dripped down, and quickly flew into the distance. He saw the family members who were fighting with their opponents on the warship, looking up one by one, with surprise in their eyes, but also a trace of relief and joy. What are they happy about? They should hate, they should be sad, they should despair. Doflamingo didn't understand. He rode the white silk thread farther and farther, and soon disappeared. Damn it! Lanbass roared again and again. I was actually run away by this bastard. He can actually fly in the sky. He should really bring glass here. Motherfucker, he can fly too. Doflamingo was seriously injured and was dying, but he ran away anyway. The characters selected by the Times will never be destroyed so easily. They will go to that strange point under the pull of the great power of the Times, and then ignite the lead that drives the tide of the Times and set off the era of Big Bang. Dylan's eyes flickered and he turned back silently. What about those guys? Lanbas looked at the Don Quixote family members who were fighting hard. Kill. Dylan's voice was indifferent and emotionless. Good. Lanbas said fiercely, striding towards the members of the Don Quixote family. Seeing the majestic and terrifying figure passing by, the faces of the members of the Don Quixote family who were still fighting changed slightly, but then they burst out laughing. Yo hoo 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 hoo. Young master, we are relieved to see that you are still alive. My life, the value of continuing your existence, is my greatest moment. Ha ha ha, die without regrets. The members of the Don Quixote family were laughing and crying, crying and laughing. No one could guess what they were feeling at this moment. A bunch of screaming bastards, kill them. Lambas leapt onto the deck, his eyes full of ferocity. A minute later, the corpses on the deck were scattered, and Lambas was surrounded by an icy aura. The team members behind him looked at each other, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. On the deck, the members of the Don Quixote family stared at the cloudy sky with wide eyes, full of hope. Young master, let's go, the future era will be led by you, please take our share and work hard together. We, die without regrets. As time passed, the light in the eyes of the members of the Don Quixote family dimmed. So far, all members of the Don Quixote family have sacrificed except Doflamingo. Once prosperous. This chapter is not over, click on the next page to continue reading. Aichi, and even the flamingos who occupied the entire Dressrosa, were destroyed here. In the sky, Brother Doflamingo, who was farther and farther away from the battlefield, suddenly trembled, his embarrassed figure trembled violently, his eyes flashed with crystal light, and a tear was about to be drawn out. But when he was about to fall, he was forcibly held back, and Fan sucked it back into his eyes. They should all be dead. Brother Doflamingo became silent and wanted to look back, but at this moment, he lost the courage. There is a pirate ship in front, and Brother Doflamingo lifted his footsteps and headed there. A minute later, Doflamingo, covered in blood and very weak, landed on the deck. Who are you? The pirates shouted this roar fiercely, and countless sharp silk threads rushed out of Brother Doflamingo's body. Puff puff. A series of voices rang out, blood filled the entire ship, and the fragile pirate group was wiped out by Doflamingo in an instant. His low mood, full of anger, needed blood to be released slightly. Sitting on the bow slowly, Brother Doflamingo's eyes were low, and he looked lonely and cold when he was alone. Suddenly, a shivering child ran out of the cabin and looked at Brother Doflamingo, who was covered in blood, with horror in his eyes. Brother Doflamingo trembled slightly and turned his head. Chapter 208 Establishment of Wuhai. Blue blue blue. The dull phone worm rang. Dylan's eyes flashed slightly, looking at the sailors who were standing nervously in front of him. Watching him alertly, he took out the phone worm from his arms, and then connected. Hello, Dylan said solemnly. How's it going? Yang Qing's soft voice came out from the phone bug. Dylan tightened his body and his eyes were full of killing intent. Looking at the corpses of the members of the Don Quixote family in front of him, the muscles in his hands tightened, but in the end he said something calmly. Doflamingo ran away and everyone else was wiped out. Oh, run away. Yang Qing's voice was a little surprised, but he didn't ask much. Then come back quickly, there are a lot of things going on here. Understood. Dylan nodded. Glancing slightly at the sailors ahead, Dylan walked towards his pirate ship. His eyes were as cold as a ghost, and the seamen were so frightened that they sweated profusely and swallowed their saliva quietly. The lieutenant general who took the lead even had a tingling scalp. He clearly saw the phone bug the other party had just answered, and also heard the voice from the phone bug. That is, the deity of the god of death. The lieutenant general's eyes were a little frightened. What order did such a big man give? He only heard the beginning of the voice, but the following words were cut off by Dylan's wave. Let's go, Lambas. Dylan jumped into his boat and said loudly. Lambas nodded with a gloomy face. The two started to set sail, and the two pirate ships headed for the New World. Punk Hassad. Yang Qing sat cross-legged on the base, his eyes flickering. Dylan's mission was not completed. He was a little surprised. He is very clear about Doflamingo's agility and flexibility, but he thinks that Dylan's and Lambas are strong enough to crush the latter. People like this should directly pinch the 7 inches of it, pinching it to death, otherwise it will be messed up. I underestimate him, but it doesn't matter, no one can stop my progress. Just thinking about Doflamingo's question a little in his heart, Yang Qing put it down. To him, Doflamingo was just a small person at the moment, and he couldn't attract his attention. Soon, 2 months passed. In the past 2 months, the Death God pirates seemed unusually calm. This emerging pirate force did not carry out large-scale combat operations against the surrounding pirate gangs. Instead, they began to send messengers to conduct friendly negotiations and gather small forces. In a short period of time, there have been no less than dozens of large and small pirates attached to the Death God pirates and become his affiliated forces. A more important thing is that the Death God pirates announced an alliance with the Kingdom of Dressrosa. The pirate flag of the Death God pirates was placed next to the flag of the Kingdom of Dressrosa, fluttering in the wind, announcing the ownership of the island. During the unusual time of entering the New World, the forces of the Death God pirates have gradually stabilized. The Marine Corps was furious when they learned of Doflamingo's actions 2 months ago, and they increased the wanted amount for him. In turn, their impression of the Grim Reaper was quietly reversed. Finally, at the Naval Headquarters meeting today, warring states issued a new order with a serious expression. In this case, through the meeting and discussion during this period, the group of Death Gods, their captain Lucifer, was finalized as a temporary backup candidate for Wuhai, and his contact work. Warring states paused and looked at the tall lazy man standing beside him sleeping. It's up to you, Aokiku-Kuzan will be in charge in the future. Order it, no objection. The Grim Reaper was included among the candidates of Chiwahai, and it was the only force in the New World. Marines, make them the strongest support for the New World Marines. 3 months later, the Death God pirates' control of the entrance to the New World has quietly stabilized. But at this moment, the rebound of the 4 emperors finally appeared. Among the 4 emperors, except for the red-haired Shanks who did not make a move, the other 3 subordinates, big or small, hidden and light forces, challenged the forces of the Death Pirates in various places. A new small-scale battle has begun. Such battles are mostly concentrated in the range of 3 or 5 people, which are very small, and the time interval between them is also long, but they will never stop. The rise of the God of Death violated the interests of many people, and it is bound to experience the baptism of war. For all this, Yang Qing and the captains and cadres of the 10th Division have already prepared. I'm being held back. For the time being, I can't leave here. Yang Qing shook her head, a little helpless. The Death God pirates have grown to their current status, and he finally understood why he would not choose to leave his area so easily as the 4 emperors of the New World. It's more because, although the pirates have developed, there are also more fetters at the same time, and he is the first to bear the brunt. Standing in the king's position, he can never leave at will. His freedom was tied up. On this day, above the sea, a figure riding a bicycle slowly approached Punk Hassad, and where he passed, a long string of ice was left behind. This figure revealed a lazy breath all over his body, as if he could fall asleep at any moment. Around him, the cold air lingered, and even the temperature dropped a lot. The moment he boarded Punk Hassad, his figure was discovered. Punk Hazard turned into the base camp of the Death God pirates, which was naturally very important. It had been established like a fortress at this moment. If there is an enemy, observe immediately and identify his identity. Identification, one of the 3 major naval generals, Aokiji. Passing on. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. In the heart, let them make a decision. This is a big man, and he will come to the base camp of our Death Pirates. The crew quickly passed the information, and immediately transmitted the news of Qingzi to the center. When Yang Qing heard the news, he was stunned for a moment. Aokiji is here. Well, don't be nervous, I'm only one person. Qingzi looked helpless, spread his hands, and looked at the heavily guarded fortress in front of him. He was also shocked. I just came to see your captain, there are some things to discuss with him. Pirates and Marines, there is nothing to discuss. On the territory of the Death God pirates, the crew members were not afraid of Aokiji. At this moment, countless automatic rifles pointed at Aokiji, already loaded and ready for all attacks. As long as the captain gives an order, the attack can be launched immediately. The crew members have sharp eyes and are not afraid. Even if the opponent is the strongest naval force, they dare to fight. Soon, the order from the center came over, causing the crew members to be slightly taken aback. Let him in and I'll talk to him. Chapter 209 The Storm of the Times. Yang Qing's voice came out clearly from the phone bug. The crew looked at each other, stared at the green pheasant, and then slowly opened the door. Aokiji shrugged and walked in. At this time, a crew member of his own came to show him the way. The Admiral of the Navy actually visited in person to see our captain. What do you want to do? The crew member asked in a cold voice. No comment. Aokiji replied lazily. The crew member's face was stunned. He snorted, accelerated his speed, and led the ladder to the place where Yang Qing was. 5 minutes later, the crew member's face became solemn, and then he walked to the door in front of him softly and knocked on the door. Captain. The voice was very gentle, as if calling for a lover, causing Aokiji to raise his eyebrows, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. All the crew members of the Death God pirates look like this in front of their captain. The door opened slowly. Aokiji looked inside, and a young figure with a lazy smile entered his eyes. You can go back now and stick to your post. Yang Qing smiled softly at the crew member beside Qingzi, who was flattered, and then walked away excitedly. The captain has spoken to me, so excited. Faintly, the crew's low laughter came from the air. The Qing pheasant raised his eyebrows, and Yang Qing embarrassedly touched his nose. Dwang. The door was closed, and the figures of Qingzi and Yang Qing were hidden. The two faced each other in the spacious bedroom, and first glanced at each other. Then, Yang Qing was the first to speak. Sit down. I can see that you don't want to fight me again this time. Aokiji shook his head, and lay lazily on the leather sofa in the bedroom, sinking into it, cocking his legs. No, I'm just here to announce to you a decision of the Navy. You have the right to refuse or accept it. However, I myself hope that you will agree. There was doubt on Yang Qing's face, and what he was about to say was written on his face. What? After several months of deliberation, the Navy headquarters decided to list you as one of the next major strategies, one of the members of Wuhai. Aokiji said with a slightly serious face. The so-called Wuhai is the pirate recognized by the Navy. Powers, you can plunder legally, and the Navy will no longer pursue you, of course. Quote. Pause. Aokiji said again. As a condition, you also need to assist the sailors to do something when they ask for it. Yang Qing was stunned for a moment, and then reacted. Did he decide so quickly? He also thought that this kind of bullshit would take at least a year or two before it came to fruition. I'm afraid I'm not alone. Aokiji nodded. Of course, the current pirate candidates for the position of Wuhai include Hawkeye, Mahawk, and the king of the daughter country, Boya Hancock. That is to say, if I agree to join the position of Haibing Wuhai, both of us are in a state of cooperation. That's right, when you don't do anything serious, the Navy can consciously ignore your existence. Of course, from now on, the forces under your jurisdiction must not do harm to the Navy. Qingzi said seriously. Yang Qing smiled and didn't answer first. It's not the first time you and I have dealt with each other. Now that we meet, let's talk about the past. Aokiji was startled, then nodded. Yang Qing got up, made a cup of tea for each of them, and placed it in front of Qingzi. There was a small round table in the middle, and the two sat facing each other. I guess that the persuasion of the sea soldiers to me should be the most gentle, right? Yang Qing asked with a smile. Yes, the other pirates more or less agreed only after the naval forces suppressed and weighed their interests. Qingzi nodded and did not hide it. You are being honest with me. It's not a secret and it's not a big deal. Yang Qing shook his head. This is the most important decision made by the Navy in recent years. How could it not be a secret? The conversation between the two was straight to the point, and in a few words, the matter this time was made clear. without any twists and turns. It can be seen that the naval side is still very sincere. This shows that the people he lurked in the Navy played a great role. The matter of Wu Hai. Yang Qing's face became serious. He paused, looking into Qingzi's eyes. He smiled and said, I agree. Any reason not to agree? Everything he did before, foreshadowing and lurking, was not all for this. And becoming Wu Hai was an important stage in his plan to reach the peak. Really? Qingzi's expression relaxed. It seems that my task this time can be easily completed. I can't see it. Are you still good at talking? From this moment on, the relationship between the two parties was initially finalized and eased. Next, the conversation between the two was even more bland and easygoing. Aokiji stayed here for about a week with the Death God pirates. The two sides discussed the specific details of Wu Hai's position. After detailed research was established, it was really confirmed. A month later, the Marines announced the establishment of the Wu Hai plan to the world, and 3 candidates for Wu Hai were thoroughly selected. The Navy has established the candidates for Wu Hai, tentatively set to 3, all of them are world-famous great pirates. In view of the prosperous age of the great pirates, what kind of storm will the Navy strike forcefully usher in? From this moment on, the world will be great. In the waterway, in the new sea world, the major forces are intricate and rooted, and they have begun to enter an era of great explosion. Sea soldiers, 4 emperors. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. The 3 new Wu Hai candidates, the major pirate gangs, what kind of disputes will they cause next? Will the Navy's policy in the end balance the situation in the entire world and stabilize the era of riots? The 3 Wu Hai are all world-famous powerhouses. Death, Lucifer, the new king of the new world, the overlord at the entrance of the new world, the 130,000 elite pirates under the pirate group, and there are many affiliates under their jurisdiction. The pirates, the empress of the daughter country, Mahat the Hawk-Eyed, and their combined navy have a huge impact on the times, and according to the Navy, there will be more than 3 candidates for Wu Hai. Who else, and which big pirate, can join this camp? To be free between the Navy and the pirates, to get the best auditorium to watch the big movie in this riot era. The world is crazy again, and the Wu Hai plan has been widely publicized, making this period violent. For the first time, Wu Hai's name spread all over the world. Chapter 210 The Last Crew. It is often said that time is the least valuable thing in this world. It is like a white horse passing through a gap, and several years have passed in the blink of an eye. In the past few years, the world seems to have entered a brewing process, and all disputes have settled down. There has never been a group of outstanding pirates like the Death God pirates 3 or 4 years ago. After the initial storm, the new world finally calmed down. Punk Hazard, a group of death pirates, after several years of battle baptism, their faces are even more vicissitudes. The original childishness gradually changed, replaced by a steady and mature face. Growing up, everyone has grown up, and even the ordinary crew members have experienced these years, and they don't know how much they have matured. The establishment of Wu Hai has made the Death God group famous again. At the entrance of the new world, the Death God pirates have become an independent banner, and no one dares to offend this behemoth. In addition, through these years of battles, the strength of the Death God pirates has greatly increased, and there are only 300 devil fruit-capable people within the statistics. This formidable strength cannot be underestimated by anyone. There were even rumors that if the Death God pirates really entered the depths of the New World, they might drag a certain emperor down from the throne and replace him. Although this sentence is a rumor, no one laughed. Everyone can see the powerful fighting power of the Death God group. Although they did not have the fighting power to confront the 4 emperors head-on, in the past few years, in the countless battles of the personnel below, they also showed the brutal fighting power of the Death God gang. Aside from the fact that the Death Gods were at a disadvantage in the battle at the beginning, at this moment, at the entrance to the New World, the forces of the 4 emperors were almost completely wiped out. No one dared to mention the name of the 4 emperors in the territory of the Death Gods. Here, that is a taboo word. 4 emperors, 1 tyrant. It is the distribution range of the pirates in the New World at this moment. This tyrant refers to the tyrant of the entrance to the New World. Punk Hassad. In the central base, the atmosphere here is serious at the moment. The crowd is crowded, and the number of elite pirates stationed there is at least 300. And then looking inside, a team of backbone crew members, cadres and members of each team, stood there quietly. At this moment, the entire central base was extraordinarily serious, and none of the crew members had a gloomy expression on their faces. At the very center are the leaders of the 10 divisions of the Death God Pirates, the 10 captains, and the veteran members of the Death God Pirates. And further inward, is the legendary great pirate who has been able to compete with the 4 emperors, the god of death Lucifer. In countless battles, this legendary great pirate was once truly called a god. Like a god, he was able to control all things, which was terrifying. Then, let's start with what I'm about to announce. On the seat, Yang Qing said solemnly. At this time, Yang Qing was about 20 years old, with a handsome face, a slender body, and a noble temperament with a hint of laziness, but his dark eyes occasionally flashed a fierce breath, making anyone cannot be ignored. In the near future, I will go to the naval headquarters to make some arrangements with the World Imperial Court. And then, I will set off to the depths of the New World, that is, the area of the 4 emperors. As soon as his words fell, the cadres present were immediately shocked. What? Are you going to the area of the 4 emperors? With the current status of Yang Qing, it is impossible to dispatch at will, and his every move will attract attention from all walks of life. If such a behemoth were to move, the pressure and influence would be earth-shattering. Especially in terms of Yang Qing's own ability, his destructive power is extremely terrifying, and his strength is enough to compete with the 4 emperors, and he is almost invincible. Even the 3 generals of the naval forces and the marshals of the Warring States period were all paying attention to Yang Qing's movements all the time. Yes, I'm very embarrassed to make them wait for me for a long time. Yang Qing said with a big smile. His domineering spread out and swept the entire base. The elite crew members who were waiting outside were shocked, and sweat appeared on their foreheads, but no one fell to the ground, showing good quality. Of course, this was also because Yang Qing didn't do his best. I am going to compete with them to see how far I am from their level. With a condensed look in his eyes, Yang Qing's words were very serious and solemn. This time, he was serious. After so many years of deliberation and savings, it will finally be released at this moment. He wants to see how powerful the legendary beast Kaido, the invincible Whitebeard, is. But, what about our site here? Dylan's asked suspiciously. That's why I went to the naval headquarters, the world's imperial court. Yang Qing said, the role of Wuhai should be brought into play now. The enemy of the pirates, one is the navy, and the other is the pirates. On the side of the sea soldiers, there is Wuhai's position under pressure, and usually nothing will happen, and the pirates, the entrance to the entire New World, has been cleared by them, so what are you worried about? I am afraid that during the days we leave, the Navy will be ready to move and start actions against our forces. Drizzy's eyes flashed and he said with a smile. Yang Qing's eyes narrowed, and then she said solemnly, I don't think they would be so stupid. Everyone trembled. Yang Qing at this moment was undoubtedly more terrifying than a few years ago. His strength has truly reached its peak. Just from the fact that he couldn't bear it anymore, he wanted to really go to the depths of the New World, and it could be seen that he was probably able to compete with the 4 emperors, or even surpass them. The other thing is, our little brother, it's time to bring it back. This sentence was said, and everyone's face showed a smile. Them. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. I remembered, that kid who yelled when he was a child, seems to be saying that he wants to be the Pirate King. Ace. Robin smiled. That kid, it's not bad, he has made a name for himself in the first half. Dylan's laughed. Recently, on the reward order, he also saw that kid. The bounty has reached 100 million, Kortgas Ace. Bucky muttered while staring at the bounty in his hand, he seems to have formed a pirate group too. At this moment, Drizzt looked around and wondered, where's Anilu? I went out to run errands a year ago, and I didn't see him when I came back. Where did he go? The captain asked him to return to the air island. He is very uncomfortable to be the captain of the 2nd Division. He has to form an air island army by himself. Moria couldn't help laughing. Then, 3 days later, let's all set off and pick up our little brother. Yang Qing stood up and announced loudly. Everyone was stunned, and then all responded with a smile. Yes. Chapter 211 The Spade Pirates. 3 days later, at the huge port of Punk Hazard. The sound of, woo woo woo, came out of the port, and the huge gates slowly opened. The water waves slowly swayed from the middle to the 2 sides, and a huge pirate ship like a sea king rode the wind and waves, and made it out of the Punk Hazard port. After so many years of the elites of the Death God pirates, Punk Hazard has transformed from a hidden naval base to a prosperous port military city. Shipyards, weapon factories, central bases, port walls, and layers of layers, so that no pirate dare to look down on it. Today, in this huge port, the pirate ship that has been staying for an unknown time has finally sailed out. Haifeng Shushu, the sun is thick. The huge statue of the god of death, under the sunlight, reflects the dark light. The pirate flag at the top of the mast flutters in the wind, the huge sickle and skull pirate flag, so that everyone who sees the pirates must be silent. Wait and see. Let's go then, brothers. Gently, a slight laughter came from above the death god. The sound of the reaper was resounding, and with the sound of, woo woo, the reaper suddenly accelerated, and in a very short time, it swept across the sea, left Punk Hazard, and became more and more far. Captain, this is the first time in 3 years. Let's leave Punk Hazard. Standing at the port, 4 figures stared strangely at the gradually disappearing reaper. Yeah, I think he must have been suffocated, haha. Longbottom laughed, and behind him, Erdish and Nips also smirked. On this island, because of Yang Qing's identity, he must not leave easily. Only when the overall situation is stable will he have the opportunity to go out for a walk, but he has to come back immediately. The situation is chaotic, and the forces among the 4 emperors, as well as the sea soldiers, will never know when they will be able to come up and take a bite. Needless to say, the 4 sovereigns, even if the sea soldiers establish the identity of Wuhai, if there is an opportunity to weaken or even destroy the Death God group, they will never let it go. This is the benefit. Under the influence of huge interests, it can lead to great turmoil. Only at this time, at the entrance to the New World, was completely suppressed, so that Yang Qing and his group could relax. In this way, 4 captain-level figures were left behind before they dared to set off. Above the sea, the steam on the Reaper continued to gather into clouds, heading towards the sky. Ha ha ha, brothers, let's go to the Great Waterway. Pick up our little brother. Yang Qing laughed, sitting cross-legged on the statue of death, holding a bowl of wine in his hand, pouring it into his mouth fiercely. Today, he is very happy, very happy. Drizzt hides the ship, don't let the sailors find our tracks. Dylan shouted with a condensed look in his eyes. Understood. Drizzt nodded, pressing a button in the Reaper's control room. With a buzzing sound, the Reaper shook, and the ship was covered with a thin 7-color film. When we reach the next sea area, I will let the Reaper dive to the bottom of the sea, and let our whereabouts disappear in the sea soldiers. And in the eyes of the 4 emperors. Quote. On the Reaper, the crew members were all happy and relaxed. In the past few years, the battles have continued, and every captain-level figure has almost been outside, and they have all become powerful beings on their own. A group of people rarely gather together again. Where is Ace? Have you determined your location? Moria asked with a smile. A few years later, she was tall, with a delicate and elegant face, and she had grown into a goddess. It's confirmed, his current location should be on Bharat Island, near the capital of the 7 Waters. I heard that he has formed a pirate team by himself. Bucky said loudly with a laugh. Then speed up and go to the 7 Waters. Try to see Ace within a month. I have very little time. Yang Qing said loudly, his eyes narrowed and he took it back after Ace, it is time to usher in this era, the moment of eruption. What kind of existence are the four emperors? He was finally able to see and see. Woohoo woohoo. The death god pirates speeded up, and when they reached a certain sea area, they suddenly dived and disappeared. It's gone. What the hell are the death gods doing? They suddenly left Punk Hassad, almost half of the cadres. This is great news. People at their level don't need the power of the demon slaughter order. How little is it? It's a time bomb wherever it goes. The lieutenant general, who was always hanging in the distance, took back the telescope in his hand, and his face was very gloomy. After cooperating with the death god, the Navy finally made progress at the entrance of the New World, and quietly entered their own forces. At this moment, they can move freely in this sea area. Quietly, the Reaper disappeared from the sight of the sailors. Of course, they weren't too nervous. If the sea soldiers were most at ease with the few in Wuhai, it would undoubtedly be the death god pirates. The powerful and self-willed death god pirates are extremely powerful, but they are the most gentle. If you don't provoke them, then they will be very talkative sheep, but if you anger them, then in an instant, you will face death, and life will no longer belong to you at that moment. Half a month later, the group of death god quietly appeared on Fishman Island, but soon, in less than half an hour, they disappeared. It seems like a dream. Most people on Fishman Island have not seen the true face of the Gang of Death. Only King Neptune and Princess Itoji met with the Gang of Death, and the two sides get along very harmoniously. Over the years, although the relationship between Fishman Island and humans has not been very harmonious, they have already begun to contact. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. With the agreement of the World Court, no human dared to violate the Fishman Island on the bright side. Coupled with the shock of the Fishman Island side's skull pirate flag, any evil element must weigh the consequences of doing so. At the same time, in the sea area adjacent to the capital of Seven Waters, in the sea area of Gabilon, a pirate ship is sailing quietly in this sea area. A red peach on the pirate flag is below, and above it is a skeleton with goggles. It is the most famous spade pirate recently. Group. Ace. Why did you leave so soon? The people on Wallen Island are so enthusiastic. Ah, that wine is so good. The short fat man with a peach-shaped pattern on his stomach complained vigorously. Behind him, the 5 people looked up to the sky and laughed. Ace stood on the bow with a smile on his face. Well, we are pirates. If we don't leave, trouble will come. Chapter 212 The Meaning of Tattoos. Haha, it's too late to go now. A short man with 2 knives hanging behind his back said with a smile. When everyone looked back, they were all stunned. A warship clenched their buttocks tightly, and was now approaching the 3 miles of the Spade Pirates. At the bow of the boat, it was a middle-aged man staring at them with a solemn expression. Behind him, 6 figures stood quietly, staring at them closely. Oh, I was found out again. I'm really distressed. Ace pressed the cowboy hat on top of his head, with a bright smile on his face. This group of people has already chased our 3 islands, so perseverance. The tall and thin man behind him shook his head and said, We've smashed other people's nests. It's impossible for them to let us go. Anyway, don't say more, just run away. Ace laughed. The Spade Pirates set sail, and the speed suddenly accelerated, and the naval warships behind them bit them tightly. Contact the generals of the nearby naval division, and this time we must complete the encirclement and suppression of them. The strongest middle-aged man on the naval ship at the rear said solemnly, After chasing for so long, I finally caught them today. This time, this opportunity is absolutely not to be missed. Quote. Yes, Lieutenant General Zuo Shu. The Navy behind him gave a solemn salute and stepped back quickly. 3 minutes later, he came behind Zuo Shu. Lieutenant General, the first of the 3 naval bases on the nearby islands has agreed to send troops to reinforce us and participate in the encirclement and suppression of the Spade Pirates. Yeah. The Spades group has already become so famous after less than a year of going to sea. Their captain, Portgas D. Ace, is not an ordinary person. He has the power to burn the fruit of the natural system, but he has the potential of being a naval general, which is why the Marine Corps invited him to participate in Wuhai, but unexpectedly, he refused. Zuo Shu said indifferently. Since he has refused, the Navy certainly can't tolerate such evil guys having a chance to exist again. Get ready, 3 days later, when the other 3 Marines arrive, we will encircle them. Zuo Shu's voice became louder and he gave an order. The Marines behind him responded loudly. And the group of Spades pirates in front of them had not realized it until now, and the danger had come unknowingly. They laughed loudly, played, and occasionally watched the Marines behind them. 2 days later, Ace smiled when he saw that the naval ship had been thrown away by them and disappeared. Finally got rid of it, this time, thanks to the captain's ability. As an assistant, our pirate ship can speed up a lot. The crew laughed at each other and relaxed. But what they didn't know was that the lieutenant general on the naval ship behind him had already called the phone bug. Hey, the Spade pirates have entered the encirclement area, get ready to surround them. This time, this group of people will never be allowed to appear on the sea again. Understood. Understood. We are ready for everything. 3 cold voices came from the phone bug. Zuo Shu nodded, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. Everything will be known tomorrow. Justice will not allow anyone to blaspheme. The Spade pirates, your time of death is here. Night falls, and the full moon is in the sky. Before you know it, it's night time. The Spade pirates are still in the sea, because at night, they stopped sailing and chatted with each other. Captain, why are you going to sea? Among the crew members, someone asked curiously. Didn't you ask this question many times? Because, I'm the man who wants to become One Piece. Haha, Captain, you're joking again. One Piece is so easy, but if you want to do it, we will absolutely support you. Ace laughed. I will make it. Actually, I haven't asked the captain, what's with the tattoo on your arm? The highly skilled crew member in a black suit suddenly asked. As soon as these words came out, the entire pirate ship fell into silence. Everyone's face became serious. Because of this question, everyone thought about it in their hearts, but the meaning of the tattoo was extraordinary. How could they possibly have access to such big men? Perhaps, the captain really admired that group of people. However, on weekdays, he didn't see how much the captain revered the group. Instead he always mocked them loudly. For example, Sabotage King Bucky. He would say, "Ha, this red nose is really ugly, such a person is actually so powerful." Another example is the card master Drizzt, who would say that he is just a bad gambler, what a shame. Another example is the famous Ghost Villains. He would describe it like this, just a wretched old guy. If it is so outrageous, if the group of people find out, their pirate group will be annihilated immediately, right? The captain was too bold, but until today, they just asked the exit. That tattoo, from the first time they saw Ace, had been on his arm. You know, almost people all over the world know the meaning of such tattoos. It is a scary tattoo, but it also represents the supreme glory. Well, the smile on Ace's face slowly faded, making everyone's hearts lift, as this tattoo engraved on him. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. It's just that I think it's pretty cool. Nice. Everyone was speechless, and they questioned loudly. Hey, do you know, Ace, the meaning of this tattoo, what it represents? Let the gang know that sending a small squad leader can destroy us all. That's the legend, God of Death. Ace touched the hat on top of his head and laughed, not caring about the crew's eyes to kill him, and the long sword on his waist shone in the moonlight. Hurry up and erase it. When one day, we enter the new world. No, we don't need to enter the new world, it's just the Fishman Island. If we enter the Fishman Island, I'm afraid those people will tear us apart. Yeah, that picture is so beautiful, I can't imagine it. That tattoo is so scary, get rid of him now, Ace. Listening to the persuasion of the crew, Ace suddenly held down the long sword on his waist, and he smiled domineeringly. it's just a tattoo, don't worry about it. Chapter 213 Fire Fist. At night, under the moonlight, the scythe skeleton on the arm shone with eerie light. Even the spade pirates seldom pay attention to that tattoo. There are many people who can engrave this tattoo, but such people are definitely not in the first half of the Great Waterway. Ace's stubbornness left the entire ship with no choice but to give up helplessly in the end. Fortunately, Ace will cover up this tattoo on weekdays, so few people can see it, and they will let the latter mess up. Otherwise, they will not wait for the Marines to encircle and suppress them. In the New World, the pirates who were eager to join the Death God pirates heard such news. They would first come here, tear them to pieces, and honor the legendary adult. The night was silent, and soon, the morning sun rose, and the spade pirates set sail again. Facing the morning sun, they took a deep breath. It's another good day. Ace stretched his waist, a smile on his face. However, our luck is not good. The short man with two knives behind him shrugged. They saw a warship heading towards them not far ahead. The smile on Ace's face subsided. Looking at this situation, we seem to be surrounded. They probably didn't rest all night, just to wipe us out here. The tall and thin man had a smile on his face. Fortunately, there is only one warship, so it should be easy to escape this time. Everyone's expressions were calm and not worried. But Ace's eyes became more and more solemn, and he inexplicably had a bad premonition, as if he was deeply surrounded. What's wrong, Ace? After being patted on the shoulder by the crew member, Ace trembled and his eyes tightened suddenly. No, hurry up, speed up, stay away from that warship. No, let's face it, rush over. Quick, Ace shouted loudly. The crew members looked puzzled, but the next moment, after they glanced around, their expressions changed. This is over. How come there are so many sailors? All sides, front, rear, left and right, were surrounded by two warships. These 8 warships may be large or small, but they are densely covered with sailors, especially the lieutenant general who was just thrown away yesterday, and he has appeared here again at this moment. We are surrounded, Ace said solemnly, front and rear, left and right. It was impossible to escape, and no place was easy to break through. This time, maybe we won't be able to leave. The crew members behind them also looked extremely solemn. The 8 warships on the opposite side were like 8 tigers, slowly advancing towards the group of spade pirates. The icy muzzles had been filled with shells, and the thick smell of gunpowder permeated. At first, these warships were still separated by a little distance, but as time passed, they were concentrated in one place, walking side by side, and the distance became smaller and smaller. When they were already close in front of them and could see each other's expressions, loud shouts came from all directions. Launch, attack. Bang 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 bang. Hush shush. A series of shelling sounds came out, and looking at the cannonballs all over the sky, the faces of the spade pirates suddenly changed. Ace, someone shouted. I saw it. Ace was sweating profusely. This time it was undoubtedly trouble. He took a sudden step, and a scorching flame burned on his body, and then the pung, flames jumped up and swept the entire ship in an instant. With the explosive force of the flames, the ship's forward speed suddenly accelerated, dodging a large number of shells, and then with the help of several crew members, they cut all the shells that were about to fall on the ship, or let them explode. Hoo-hoo, it's dangerous. The crew let out a long sigh. If the overwhelming shells were hit, the consequences would be tragic. The dignified expression on Ace's face has not been removed. He pressed his hat and said solemnly, speed up the advance, get close to them, we will suffer a big loss from the distance. Understood. The navigator quickly turned the rudder and drove towards the Navy warship on the opposite side. It seems that they are not stupid. They decided to fight us head-on and have a side-to-side battle. On the opposite warship, the young general standing in front of him laughed. The ships of the other 3 parties have also come to support us. This time, the spade pirates are really hard to escape. The woman smiled again. The sound of the shelling came out again, and the black shells cut through the air and headed towards the spade pirates. Ace stood on the bow and looked at the warship that was only a few hundred meters away. Flames burned in his eyes, and his whole body jumped, and the flames lingered. "Give me the boat," shouted towards the rear. Soon, a small boat was thrown overboard by the crew. Ace jumped and stood firmly on the boat. Then, his eyes froze, and a flame of 1 meter burst out from the bottom of his feet. With just a bang, flames spewed from the back of the boat and quickly moved towards the opposite side. With the power of the flame, Ace moved quickly on the sea. 30 seconds later, Ace had reached the front of the warship, with a cruel smile on his face. Fire fist. He suddenly jumped high and headed towards the warship. With a puff, a large flame burst out from his right fist, and then the flame formed a powerful impact and explosive force, and slammed into the warship. Superior. Boom. Suddenly, all kinds of screams and panic came out on the warship. Chapter 214 _ Ace himself was in the air, flames lingering around him, and the high temperature caused the air to twist slightly. The elongated flame fist, carrying the scorching temperature, directly broke the mast at the center above the warship, and even more raging flames burned. Falling from a height, Ace crouched on the deck. Seeing the seamen who were panicking, but still pointed their rifles at them, their hands looked like pistols. Bang bang bang. Groups of flames shot out like bullets, hitting the bodies of the surrounding Marines, causing them to scream. Then, he swung his fist forward, and the instant the fist was punched, the flames soared and turned into the shape of a fist. Fire fist. With a bang, a huge explosion occurred in the warship, thick smoke billowed, and the flames set the warship on fire. Ace quickened his pace and ran quickly towards the other side. He saw there, a young figure was rushing over. Without a doubt, that is the supreme commander on this warship. Just catch him. It's all right. Ace's eyes were sharp, and when he approached the ladder, he jumped up abruptly. Fire fist. With a bang, the large group of flames burned, and the punch hit the commander directly. The high temperature of the flame distorted the air, and the power of the blow was very powerful. But Ace, who was in the air, saw the indifferent expression of the other party, without fear, and even a trace of teasing at the corner of his mouth. Shave. At the moment when the fire fist fell, the figure of the sea soldier distorted and disappeared. Ace's eyes narrowed, and the fire fist fell on the deck, hitting a huge black hole, causing the deck to burst into flames. Ace stood in the flames, with flames burning all over his body. His eyes were dignified, and his spirit was highly concentrated. This sailor is no ordinary guy. Land feet. With a sound of boom, the sea soldier suddenly appeared 2 meters in front of Ace, a high leg slashed down, and a blue slashing wave brewed out of his toes. Ace's face changed, and his right foot directly kicked at the ladder at a very fast speed. The sea soldier was stunned for a moment, one leg was kicked crookedly, and the blue slashing wave rushed out, directly cutting the house beside him in half. Phew, so dangerous. Ace sighed. Fire fist Ace really has some strength. The sea soldier exclaimed. The justice cloak behind him fluttered in the wind, and in front of him was Ace standing in the flames. Brigadier General Marine. Ace narrowed his eyes, and then said with a smile, the Marine sent a character like you so quickly. The most legendary supernova in this issue, it's no big deal to send me here. It's Lieutenant General Zuo Shu who is chasing you. If you can escape from his hands, you must not be despised. The Brigadier General said loudly, however, I will take the credit this time. As soon as the voice fell, the Brigadier General disappeared suddenly. Ace's complexion changed, and the Brigadier General behind him suddenly appeared. Before he could react, he kicked it out. This kick was not Lan's foot. But he kicked Ace ruthlessly, stopped at the waist, and swept up a large flame. Elementalization. The Brigadier General's face changed slightly, his figure jumped, and he disappeared. So fast. Ace was amazed. He almost didn't respond to the attack just now. With a shake of his right leg, the flame on his leg was extinguished, and the Brigadier General strode up and walked towards Ace. With one end of Ace's hands, the musket kept firing. The latter's figure was twisted, swaying from side to side, erratic like a leaf, and easily dodged. Then, in Ace's surprised eyes, a dark breath appeared on the tip of his finger. What is that? Ace's eyes were solemn, and he felt a dangerous aura. Shave. The Brigadier General disappeared again, and then appeared in front of Ace almost at the same time. Finger gun. Poked directly at Ace's mouth with incredible speed. Ace immediately became elemental, but the next moment, a puff sounded, and the finger actually inserted into his Shang mouth. Bright red blood fell on the deck as the Brigadier General pulled out his finger. Ace was pale, and his eyes narrowed violently. Did you dodge it? What an amazing reflex arc. The Brigadier General was a little shocked. The finger didn't hit Ace's heart, but instead pointed upwards, hitting the area near Ace's shoulder. Ace was extremely dignified at the moment. This man was able to hit his natural elementalization. Brigadier General was a little proud. He didn't rush to attack, but began to explain. I'm surprised why I can catch your natural elementalization. This is called armed arrogance, and it can hit elemental entities. In the New World, this is a power that is very common. Of course, you little bastards in the first half of the Great Fairway won't know about it. Little bastard. Ace's eyes narrowed, and anger erupted in his eyes. Who are you calling a bastard? Suddenly, Ace accelerated his pace, and an angry flame was burning all over his body. As his emotions fluctuated, the flame seemed to be even hotter, rising into the sky, condensing into a huge fire group, and covering an increasingly larger area. Flame ring. With a loud shout, a large group of flames broke out on the warship. Under the burning of this fierce flame, the entire warship burned. The Brigadier General's expression changed, and he ran around to avoid the flames' attack. He is not a devil fruit person, and he can only avoid the attack of this natural flame. In the distance, the warship was slowly approaching here, and Lieutenant General Zuo Shu, who was standing on the bow, had his eyes slightly lowered. It seems that the battle has already begun. Speed up and be sure to surround and destroy the Spade Pirates. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. Yes, the sailors shouted loudly. The battle between Ace and the young Brigadier General involved a very large area. The angry Ace was like a flamethrower. Wherever he went, the flame would burn. Soon, the entire ship was covered in flames and became Ace's domain. This scene made the Brigadier General secretly feel bad. As time went by, he had nowhere to go. Never mind, kill him, and I will naturally live. By this time, the Brigadier General did not care whether he would be burned by the flames. Shave. The voice suddenly disappeared, and the dark armed color wrapped around his fingers domineeringly. At this moment, he could only complete this small part of the armed color. Finger gun. Appearing in front of Ace in an instant, the Commodore attacked again. Ace's eyes narrowed, and he suddenly stretched out his right hand with flames, firmly grasping the latter's fingers in his hand. The Brigadier General's face changed suddenly, and his heart sank. Chapter 215 arrived. Now, who's the minion? Tightly grasping the black fingers covered by the armed color of the Brigadier General, these words popped out of Ace's mouth one by one. Then, the flames behind him suddenly rose, and the large flames gathered into a small sun-like light group. The moment the Brigadier General saw it, a look of panic appeared in his eyes. No, no, no. Flame ring. PFF'd. A large flame broke out on the warship again. Ace let go of his hand, and a burning figure screamed in pain, screaming, and suddenly jumped from the ship into the sea. The warship began to sink slowly, and countless sailors joined the defense headquarters and jumped into the sea, looking at the figure standing on the deck of the sinking warship in horror. Fire Fist Ace. He is Ace. The legendary Fire Fist is so strong. Standing on top of the burning warship, Ace looked forward, his pupils shrunk, where the warships slowly surrounded them, encircling them. Not far from him is the group of spades. This hole was just torn open by him, but it was filled by another warship. The pitch-black muzzle was facing him at the moment. Can't you escape today? The warship is getting closer and closer, and it is already in front of him. He can clearly see that at the bow of each warship, there is a stern-faced sailor, exuding an awe-inspiring aura, which should not be underestimated. Even the sailor who had just been hit with the flame ring was still alive at the moment, clutching the broken deck, panting and staring at him fiercely. When Ace's group was trapped in the encirclement, not far from this sea area, a huge pirate ship suddenly surfaced. The 7-color film made the sea water roll down, and a large amount of water mist formed under the sunlight. Up the rainbow. What a beautiful scene. A male voice sounded from the huge pirate ship. So, have we arrived yet? Of the 7-color film, the sea breeze suddenly blew, and the sickle and skull pirate flag fluttered in the wind. At the bow of the boat, the figures stood, each with a relaxed and casual expression, plus a nostalgic expression. At the very front of them, a figure with a sword behind it, with a lazy face as if he hadn't woken up, but the domineering aura of the king around him shocked the entire sea. Unlike the temperament of the pirates who are still in the great waterway, the faint domineering aura of this group of people makes everyone look at them. It's not there yet. Ace is right ahead. Drizzt pointed forward with a smile, but, it's already very close to us. Let's go then. I can't wait to see that kid. Bucky laughed loudly, bumping his fists together, making a thumping sound. Let's go. Yang Qing shouted loudly, and the Reaper set sail, facing the gradually dissipating 7-color rainbow. When Ace was surrounded and could not escape one person, the Grim Reaper has also quietly crossed the New World and came to the Great Waterway. The flames were burning, and the wooden warship quickly became scorched in the midst of such a vigorous fire. Ace stood on the slowly sinking warship, his face dignified, and sweat dripped from his forehead. At this moment, he was extremely nervous and anxious. How to escape? Looking around, the exit has been completely blocked by the surrounding warships. At this moment, they are really embarrassed and enemies are everywhere. The warship was already very close to him, and the Spade Pirates came to him. Ace jumped and returned to his boat. Nice job, Ace. The crew laughed loudly. Ace's eyes were solemn, he slowly shook his head, and looked in all directions. It's not the time for us to be happy. Ha ha ha, it's our honor that the sea soldiers take so much trouble to catch our group. Yeah, there are 8 warships, and one was killed by Ace. It's really bad. The crew members surrounding Ace laughed loudly, and there was no fear in their eyes. Just now, Ace, you were in the limelight. Next, it's up to us. This battle is not yours alone. Ace was stunned for a moment when he heard the crew's words, and then nodded. I understand. They are a whole, and the people of the Spade Pirates are all partners. Such a situation, of course, should be faced together. Brothers, bring the guys, we're fighting them. With a loud shout, the crew of the Spade Pirates shouted in unison. Their bodies were full of momentum, and they were very full. The warships slowly surrounded them, and when they were only 50 meters away from the Spade Pirates, they stopped at the same time. The other several naval ships were solemn, and the smell of gunpowder had begun to permeate. The soldiers were all armed with live ammunition, and their faces were grim. All the cannons were aimed at the Spade Pirates, and the solemn aura swept the entire scene. This was an extremely serious situation. Ace, who was standing on the bow, condensed in his eyes, and the flames shot up to the sky. His eyes were burning with raging anger, and he shouted loudly, only the dead Spades, the Spades Pirates who have not surrendered, the Marines, come here. Go. Lieutenant General Zuo Shu had no expression on his face, but said solemnly, as expected, it is Fire Fist Ace as expected, facing the situation of life and death, he can still be so courageous. But at the same time, I have to say, you made a bad decision. The right hand was raised, and then suddenly swung down. Covered with artillery fire, attack with destruction. Blast them to slag. Crack clap clap. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. A series of gunbolts sounded, and the soldiers were ready for a battle. At the same time, with the sound of thunderous bombardment, the pitch-black shells shot out suddenly, rubbing sparks in the air, emitting white mist, and falling heavily towards the Spade Pirates. Boom 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 boom. The shells landed around the Spade Pirates' ship, splashing large swaths of seawater. Ace and the others did not change their expressions, and seriously swept the cannonballs out of the pirate ship's range, letting them explode in the air or on the sea. Continue the bombardment. We still have a lot of shells. After a wave of shelling ended, Lieutenant General Zuoshu waved his hand again, and the densely packed shells shot out again. Chapter 216 A Piece of Death. Again. At this moment, the expressions of the Spade Pirates changed drastically. With such a bursting attack, under the long-range coverage, they are very passive and have been in a state of wasting their physical strength. How should the next battle be carried out? Looking up, the pitch-black shells formed a wall of shells, and the thick smell of gunpowder filled the sky. At this moment, the sea area was filled with the smell of hot gunpowder. Even the air became hot, and all the members of the Spade Pirates had a solemn expression. Looking at the dense cannonballs, they felt helpless for a while. Fire fist. Double swords flow the profound meaning, Feng Ning's double swords. Bang. One slash, cut the wind. In the end, everyone still chose to shoot. Without action, there is only death. If such a dense amount of shells hit the pirate ship, they would not even have a shred of hope today. A large number of cannonballs exploded in the air, and all the members of the Spade Pirates took action, sweeping all the cannonballs that kept coming out of the ship. However, there were still 3 or 4 shells that hit the pirate ship. Boom! The terrifying explosion hit, and someone was blown to the ground. When he shook his head was already covered in blood. The number of naval cannonballs was too large, and one after another hit the pirate ship, causing a thick flame to burn on the ship. The mast shell exploded, and the pirate flag also burned. Damn, it's too much. It can't be defended at all. Can't you go? Ace clenched his fists, his eyes full of fierce breath. He hasn't come to the new world, he hasn't seen that group of people, he hasn't seen that strange world, how magnificent it is. He still has too many things to do, how can he be willing to stop here? That man, has he faced such a situation? How did he cope? Ace was tense, and he strode to the bow, watching another wave of shells coming in densely. The flames all over his body burst into flames and shot out into the sky. I won't fall. Here, it's far from my end. The flames ferociously entangled and circled, rushing into the sky, and the red color turned half of the sky into red. A little flame rose from Ace's right hand, and then quickly enlarged. After 3 breaths, it was a huge fireball that was 3 feet in size, and the flaming fireworks were like a small sun. Then, with the passage of time, the fireball in Ace's hand became larger and larger, and finally, it was the size of a pirate ship. This terrifying fireball caused shock to everyone present. Ace, did he break through? The crew of the Spade Pirates were stunned, looking at the huge fireball, speechless. On the opposite warship, Lieutenant General Zuoshu's eyes flashed. It's interesting, is this the power of nature? It's really scary. But it's no use. Hush shish. A series of cannonballs had reached the head of the Spade Pirates, and at this moment, Ace suddenly raised his right hand, his face crazy and hideous. Burn it! Great flame ring, Flame Emperor! The huge fireball was suddenly thrown by him. The huge fireball quickly rose into the sky, and then came into contact with the pieces of artillery shells, causing a spectacular explosion. The whole sky was lit up red, and the fire snakes swirled around, landing on the sea, making the whole sea full of angry thick white fog. Hoo hoo hoo. After delivering that huge blow, Ace bent down and gasped heavily. The huge fireball took a lot of his physical strength and made him pale. In contrast, Lieutenant General Zuoshu on the opposite warship waved his hand indifferently, approach them and engage in a pick-up battle. Obviously, the enemy has entered a period of exhaustion. The warships moved forward slowly, approaching the Spade Pirates. A minute later, the Spade Pirates were tied with a large number of ropes, and then the sailors rushed along the ropes with grim expressions on their faces. Bang bang bang. The sound of gunshots and the collision of swords kept coming out. The sailors fell to the ground one by one, and the members of the Spade Pirates were back to back, facing the enemies from all directions. In such a situation, there is no way to escape. They only have to work hard for one stop and die on this battlefield with the greatest glory of pirates. Ace, can you escape? During the battle, the crew suddenly roared. Ace was stunned for a moment, knocked over the enemy in front of him with a punch, and the flames burned, solving the opponent, and turning his eyes slightly to the back. What? Get out. Leave us alone. Your footsteps shouldn't stop here. You still have a long way to go. We will deal with this group of bastards. The crew roared loudly, causing Ace to tremble all over. No, it's impossible. I won't leave you. Ace roared loudly, scorching flames all over his body, causing the enemies beside him to retreat in horror. Don't be stupid, let's go. With our hope, with our eyes, look at the majestic waves of the new world, and see what the world looks like. The crew shouted breathlessly. Also, be sure to climb to the top. Ace narrowed his eyes and strode to the crew to join them. I won't leave, Captain. How could I turn my back on my crew? Those present. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. Only you can escape. If you don't leave, it will be too late. More and more enemies. In all directions, a sailor fell, but more sailors rushed over. The outcome of this battle has already been determined. No matter how powerful they are, what is the use in the face of a terrifying number of enemies? Moreover, on the 8 warships, the people standing at the bow have not yet shot. This is a must-kill situation. I won't go, Ace said fiercely. If you want to die, just die together. The crew members were shocked, and finally they nodded complicatedly. Then let's fight together. Ace nodded with a smile and turned around. However, the moment he turned his head, a crew member behind him suddenly turned the hilt upwards and hit him hard on the back of the head. The strong wind swept across the back, and Ace's whole body turned into flames, and the handle of the knife passed through the flames. Turning his head, Ace looked at his crew. Forget, Captain, you are elementalized, and you didn't even knock you out. The crew member holding the hilt smiled awkwardly. Give it up. We are partners, Ace said solemnly. He understood what the latter meant. He wanted to stun himself and leave here. At this moment, the naval generals standing on the bow of the warship that surrounded them moved. It's almost time. It's time to kill them all. Chapter 217 Frightened. Under the sea breeze, the cloaks of justice behind the generals trembled. In the sound of the wind, the 2 characters of justice were so dazzling. The spade pirates were back to back with blood all over their faces. The tired group stared solemnly at the generals coming towards them, and had a bad premonition in their hearts. Now, it's too late to leave. I never thought of leaving. Ace laughed loudly. As all the generals at the bow of the warship came, the seamen who kept coming up to attack began to retreat and stop attacking. 30 seconds later, 8 figures stood in front of the spade pirates. Hoo, are you going to fight? Ace was breathing heavily, his face full of blood, his voice was like a beast. Lieutenant General Zuo Shu's voice was firm and decisive, and there was no room for turning around. His voice was serious, with a strong killing intent. It is conceivable that in the next moment, as long as Ace and the others refuse again and confirm their attitude, this group of generals who surround them will inevitably launch a violent and ruthless attack, killing them immediately. Haha, didn't I say it a long time ago? Ace's voice almost came out of his mouth, and his face was extremely hideous because it was covered in blood. I will not surrender if I die. If that's the case, that's a pity, Zuo Shu sighed, then he waved his hand. Execute them. The generals of the other 3 bases grinned slightly, showing serious killing intent, and moved forward. This time, it's really going to die, Ace. I'm so unwilling. I haven't gone to the new world. I haven't realized my dream. I haven't seen a mermaid yet. The crew members roared one by one, and Ace also showed a helpless smile on his face, and touched the sword of oath behind his back. I'm also very unwilling to meet them yet. Then, his eyes narrowed, gasping for breath and staring at the person walking slowly across from him, a murderous light shot out of his eyes. "Oh, haven't given up yet. Very tenacious perseverance." Lieutenant General Zuo Shu had a look of admiration on his face, but the killing intent in his eyes was even greater. "However, you must still die." 8 figures slowly approached, and the 4 top officers and 4 adjutants of the Navy were all extremely terrifying. At this moment, the crisis of the Spade Pirates is imminent, and their fate is almost certain. Da 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 da. The footsteps stopped, and the 8 sailors were only 3 meters away from the Spade Pirates. At such a distance, one can launch an attack with just one move, and it has reached the most dangerous moment. Ace clenched his teeth, clenched his fists, and flames began to erupt from his body. The crew members behind him also looked fierce and wanted to launch the final blow. The trapped beasts are still fighting, they can still move, and they will never give up their resistance. Kill. Suddenly, both sides moved, and the murderous intent in each other's eyes could be clearly seen. In an instant, Schwanconvenience completed the first contact. The flames were angrily blazing, like a big bird with open wings, overwhelming the sky and heading towards the other side's Marines. Shave. Land feet. In an instant, the Marines launched a terrifying attack. In just an instant, the Spade Pirates fell into an absolute disadvantage. Except for Ace reluctantly took a blow, the other crew members were knocked away almost instantly due to their lack of physical strength, and fell heavily on the deck behind them, spitting out blood. Stubborn pirates are born to be damned. A young adjutant sneered and stomped hard on the crew. Ace clenched his teeth, his face extremely angry. "You don't have time to pay attention to other people, fire fist Ace." Zuo Shu's icy voice suddenly came, and Ace was shocked. The next moment, he was punched heavily in the back, and the flames all over his body were violent. The ground was extinguished, and then fell heavily towards the front, slammed into the wall of the ship, and knocked out a gap in the wooden wall of the ship. Blood dripped from his head, and Ace was a little stunned. "Be punished. Fire fist Ace, kill you here for justice." Zuo Shu strode forward, stepped on Ace's body, firmly controlled the latter, and wiped his right hand towards his waist. The long knife flashed out, and then aimed at Ace's neck. Die. The long knife was suddenly clenched, and the arm was so strong that Zuo Shu was about to chop it off. But at this moment, the sky suddenly darkened. An incomparably domineering aura swept the entire sea area. Zuo Shu's right hand that was about to be cut off suddenly trembled, and he was a little unsteady. What? Zuo Shu looked around with shock in his eyes. A huge pirate ship appeared here out of nowhere. The pirate ship was so huge that it was terrifying enough to hold the size of 3 or 4 of their warships. On the wall of the ship, countless black lacquered gun holes were facing the front, showing its hideous appearance. A fear from the bottom of his heart swept Zuo Shu's mind in the blink of an eye. Bang bang bang. A series of sounds of falling to the ground sounded, and in front of this domineering atmosphere that made the world change color and the sea calm down, the sailors rolled their eyes one by one, foaming at the mouth, and fell to the deck. 8 warships, nearly 1,000 sailors, but in front of this domineering aura, there is no resistance at all. As the giant ship kept approaching, fewer and fewer sailors were standing. This strange scene made the faces of the 8 seamen immediately dignified. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. Overlord is domineering. Zuo Shu's face was ugly, and he spat out every word from his mouth. This aura that shocks the entire sea area is exactly the domineering look of the Overlord. The incomparable aptitude of a king can convince all the arrogance and will that is inferior to his own unique domineering. And as the giant ship got closer and closer, the faces of the sailors who could still stand on the deck became more and more ugly, and there was even a hint of panic in some people's eyes. Chapter 218 Blocking Our Way. The overwhelming tyrannical aura became more and more violent as the distance got closer and closer. The sea seemed to be overturned, the huge warships and them, in front of this breath, seemed extremely insignificant, like dead leaves drifting along in the waves, weak and pale. The sea wind blew, and on the huge ship, the pirate flag at the top of the mast fluttered in the wind, which was seen by everyone present. In an instant, shock and panic appeared in everyone's eyes. "That's it," sighed Skeleton. Zuo Shu's eyes suddenly narrowed into a dangerous gap, and his heart beat faster. The flag made his breathing almost stop at this moment, and a feeling called suffocation swept through his whole body, making his mind freeze at this moment. Is blank. Fright, fear, disbelief, and a hint of illusory feeling in a dream. How is that possible? Ace also widened his eyes. He was too familiar with that flag. On his right arm, the tattoo is exactly the same as the mark on this flag. At this moment, everyone present was shocked by the huge ship that suddenly appeared, and no one moved. Lieutenant General Zuo Shu. A sea soldier swallowed and said softly. "Don't act rashly. If the flag is real, if you shoot randomly in front of this group of people, the consequences will be extremely terrible." At this moment, even Zuo Shu, who is a lieutenant general, is very solemn. Even there is still a trace of psychology in his heart that he doesn't want to meet each other face to face. However, to his disappointment, the huge pirate ship was heading towards the wind, clearly coming towards them. The distance was getting closer and closer, and the figure standing on the bow of the ship was also clearly seen by those present. At the very front, a thin figure seemed to be plain and simple, but the domineering aura emanating from that body made everyone panic and shock in the bottom of their hearts. When they saw the person's appearance, their pupils contracted, and their hearts were suddenly clenched. It's him. It's really him. It's actually him. Why did such a big man suddenly appear here? Isn't there any news from the Navy headquarters? Why did he come here? Such a terrific figure. Even the young general who had just started to fight with Ace was a little unstable at this moment. Just the moment he saw the man on the opposite side, a deep fear rose in the general's heart. Death, the god of death Lucifer. Someone spat out the name in horror, which deepened the dignified and fearful atmosphere among everyone present. The members of the Spade Pirates are also feeling strange at the moment, but they are more gloating about misfortune. In any case, the death group belongs to the pirates. What will they do when they encounter this group of Marines at this moment? This result made them a little curious. I didn't expect that I was talking about this pirate group yesterday, but I actually saw it today. Is that terrifying figure on the bow of the boat the deity of the god of death? It's a terrifying aura, apparently calm as water, but so domineering that even the sea is in front of him. He doesn't dare to make trouble. Behind him, there are still a few people standing vaguely. I am afraid that these are the cadres and members of the Death Pirates. The Reaper is getting closer and closer, and in this dignified and pressured atmosphere, no one dares to act rashly. The Spade Pirates dragged their tired bodies and leaned against the wall of the ship. Haha, I didn't expect it to look like I was going to be rescued by the death gods. I'm really lucky. The crew laughed, not knowing what happened in the future. At least they were still alive at the moment. Ace lay on the ground, and then stood up with all his strength. A complex light flashed in his eyes, looking at the figure on the bow. The distance is still far away, although he can't see the expression on the man's face, but he can feel that he is staring at him closely. The right hand slowly stretched out, and Ace pressed it on the sword of the oath. Agreement, is it going to be done? This sentence suddenly echoed in his heart, and the inexplicable Ace had some strange feelings. 30 seconds later, the huge Reaper stopped directly in front of the warship. The huge figure stood in front of the warship, like a mountain, casting a shadow on the warship. It's a huge ship. It feels like we can kill our warship as long as we rampage. The sailors watched in horror and swallowed secretly. Then, in the eyes of everyone, a figure began to appear at the bow of the Reaper. That is, Ghost, Dylan's. King of Destruction, Bucky, First Team Captain Bucky. Card Master Drizzt. Dr. Death, Trafalgar Law. That's Corazon. The officers and members of the Death God Pirates were pointed out in horror by the Marines present. At this moment, everyone's aura was overwhelmed by the cadres who were wearing the huge pirate. No one dared to make loud noises and unbridled arrogance in front of this pirate ship, because what would be greeted would be destruction. one of Wuhai, Lucifer, the god of death. Zuo Shu stared at the bow of the boat, the young figure in the front, his whole body was extremely nervous. The atmosphere on both sides remained silent, there was no movement on the Reaper, and the sailors were even more frightened and did not dare to speak first. After a stalemate for more than 10 seconds, a domineering voice came from the death god, which made every sober sailor sink in their hearts. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. Sea soldiers, you, blocking my way. The voice was bland and unremarkable, but the arrogance contained in it made the Marines feel that they would run away immediately and dare not face it again. What should I do? Even Lieutenant General Zuo Shu was upset at the moment. In the face of such a behemoth, how will he deal with it? Forcibly attack. I'm afraid he hasn't attacked yet, and he was knocked out first. This group of people started a rage. I am afraid that the generals of the naval headquarters have to move, right? Sea soldiers, get out of your way. At this moment, another voice came clearly, and everyone looked up carefully and saw that cold face. Ghost, Dylan's. After secretly swallowing a few mouthfuls of saliva and liquid, the sailors suddenly became nervous. Chapter 219 Get out of here. Facing the icy voices of the two big men in succession, the whole body of the sailors trembled slightly. At this moment, is it to let or not to let? If you let them, there is no doubt that the dignity of the sea soldiers will be smeared by them, but if you do not let them, this terrifying group of death gods will never leave them the slightest chance. Get out of the way of the warship. After just a moment, Lieutenant General Zuo Shu made a decision. The sailors turned back immediately and quickly moved the warship. The warships that had gathered to surround the Spade pirates in the center slowly spread out to the sides, leaving a huge gap. For the fear of the death gods, the naval soldiers showed obvious. Smart move. Dylan stood on the bow with a slight smile. Woo woo woo. Above the huge Reaper, there was a roar like a beast, and the huge pirate ship buzzed. 10 seconds later, the huge pirate ship stopped in front of the Spade pirates. At the bow of the boat, a series of figures stood solemnly. Yang Qing's face was lazy, and his eyes randomly glanced at Ace's group who were already standing there. The warships dispersed, watching the scene here from a distance. The supernova from the first half of the Great Waterway, the legendary Fire Fist Ace, and the Spade pirates, face the legendary Death pirates. What will be the result? What are they going to do? Stop in front of us, are they going to shoot at us? The face changed slightly, and the Spade pirates group looked extremely nervous. Ace didn't respond, just stared straight at the figure at the bow. Ace, it's still the same, as if she didn't grow up. On the bow of the boat, a smile appeared on Yang Qing's face. Look, I have to save you, it's really worthless. Tick-ticks appeared on his forehead, and Ace's face quickly darkened at a speed visible to the naked eye. Long-winded. Shouting out this sentence, Ace's words surprised the Spade pirates and the Navy, especially the Spade pirates. Their hearts burst out of fear. This is a legend among the pirates, the death gods. Such a big man is no better than a sea soldier. He is revered and admired by countless big pirates. If the pirates in the New World know about it, I am afraid that there will be many who will tear them apart. You really are not good. Yang Qing shook his head. Dylan's took a step forward, and the figure appeared directly in front of Ace. Boy, your mouth is too hard. If you don't teach you a lesson, you will not grow. The faint words made everyone present nervous. Is this going to fight? The one who shot was the deputy captain of the Death God Pirates, Ghost Dylan's. Dylan's right hand suddenly stretched out, and the space was directly controlled by him. The body that Aspen wanted to avoid suddenly froze, and he couldn't move anymore. After getting up, their faces changed drastically, and the crew members of the pirate ship who wanted to help were also tight, and they were horrified to find that they could not move. Can't move. Next, they saw Dylan's hand on Ace's head, causing countless people to change color. Stop it! The Spade pirates roared loudly, with fire in their eyes. Fire Fist is over. In the distance, the sailors on the warship swallowed. The mighty Fire Fist Ace, the legendary natural person with the ability to burn fruit, has no resistance at all when facing the opponent. Watching helplessly, the latter pressed his right hand on his head, which was equivalent to giving his life to the other party. From a distance, they couldn't understand the strange scene just now. Then, Dylan's let go of the restraint and rubbed Ace's long black hair fiercely. "Stinky boy, don't you know how to be polite? I saved you just now, do you know how to be grateful?" Ace's hair was quickly messed up by Dylan's. Hey, old guy, you have no end. My hairstyle," Ace roared with a black line on his face, knocking Dylan's right hand off with one hand. "Ha ha ha, Dylan's, Ace still hates you the most." On the bow, Bucky jumped off and stood firmly on the Spade pirate ship. "The red-nosed clown is still the same." Ace curled his lips. Bucky's face trembled, pointing at Ace with a shocked look. Dylan's looked up to the sky and laughed when he saw Bucky's appearance. Immediately afterwards, the crew of the Death Pirates jumped off the bow one by one and stood with Ace. Although their faces were calm, they could see the smiles hidden in the depths. Finally, when Yongqing came to the ship of the Spade Pirates, everyone stopped fighting. "Is this your crew?" Yongqing smiled and looked at the group of Spade's pirates behind him, making them look terrified, unable to believe that what was in front of them was the real Death God Pirates group deity. "Yes, they are all my companions," Ace said loudly, his eyes full of pride. "Very good, they are all excellent guys." Yongqing nodded, making Ace smile all over his face, but the next sentence made him stop smiling. "However, you don't seem to have grown much." "Ah. Hey, Ace argued loudly, "what do you mean by not growing up? I'm a natural type, how about a natural fruit?" With a quick jump, Ace's body burst into flames, showing his power. Thousands of people from the Spade Pirates held Ace nervously and persuaded in a low voice. "Ace, calm down, they are monsters in the New World, nature is nothing, look at the expressions of the sailors. Why are the sailors still there? Let them go. This chapter is not over, click on the next page to continue reading. Otherwise, stay here forever." With a casual voice, Yongqing turned his head again. How domineering. The members of the Spade Pirates watched Yongqing say this in a stunned manner, and they were already shocked in their hearts. On the other hand, it was the Marines, who saw that the Death God group suddenly disappeared and appeared in the bow of their ship in the next moment. Ghost Dylan's. There was almost no sign. This person appeared in the bow of the boat strangely, making Lieutenant General Zuo Shu's heart skip a beat. "Leave here now, otherwise, stay forever." Dylan's looked grim and his voice was very flat. "Seriously, if the captain hadn't let you go, you would have been turned into wrecks in the sea." Chapter 220 Make You Stronger. 8 warships, 8 naval generals, and the cloak of justice behind them trembled in the sea breeze. But at this moment, there is only one person facing him, just a word. However, the expressions on their faces changed completely, with fine sweat dripping from their foreheads, and their hearts beating violently. The name of a man, the shadow of a tree. The deputy captain of the Death God Pirates, whose strength is to tie the 8 of them together, may not be enough to sacrifice. Pirates of the New World are not newbies like the first half of the Great Channel. In the current period, the power of pirates has skyrocketed unprecedentedly, and the navy has been suppressed for a time. Then, how terrifying the strength of this group of rumored new overlords that can be compared with the 4 emperors. Retreat. Lieutenant General Zuo Shu narrowed his eyes and waved his hand vigorously. Afterwards, in a tense atmosphere, the 8 warships quickly turned around and slowly left here. In front of this god of death that is no less terrifying than the 4 emperors, what can the sea soldiers do? Dylan's glanced coldly at the sea soldier in front of him, and then took a step forward. The next moment, he was in front of Ace and the others. At this moment, the Spade Pirates are on board. The group of Death Pirates walked down one by one, showing the joy of reunion in the face of Ace. "Ace, long time no see." Robin smiled. "Robin." Ace touched his head and laughed. Luo stood silently, watching Ace's group without saying a word. The members of the Spade Pirates were a little stunned at the moment, and they didn't seem to have reacted. How is this going? Their captain actually knew the Death God Pirates. The timid young man standing at the very center was absolutely right, the terrifying big pirate Lucifer, who was the head of the god of death with the terrifying amount printed on it. This is absolutely true. Also, the faces of the group of people around him are familiar to some people in the Spades group, but some are unheard of, but there is no doubt that they can all shake a sea by raising one foot. Guys. Yes, absolutely yes, this is the Death God Pirates. Ace, you actually know them. Also, that big man with the name of the god of death actually said that we are not bad. The bodies of the Spade Pirates are all trembling and shaking slightly, which is excitement. Anyone standing in front of such a terrifying guy would look extremely excited. Ace, you're still like this. How can you be more mature? Yang Qing patted Ace's head and sighed, stinky boy, he looks almost like me. Hey, you're only a few years older, don't pretend to be old. Ace rolled his eyes. Ha 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 ha. The Reaper group all laughed, and the Spade Pirates group laughed dryly. In front of such a big man, they were still a little nervous and uncomfortable. Looking at Ace's tattered boat, Yang Qing frowned slightly and said, this boat is no longer usable, come with me. Gladeus, put down the board. Drizzt yelled. A head popped out from the Reaper and greeted, okay. Then, the sound of buzzing sounded, and the thick walking board was spit out from the bow of the Reaper and connected to the top of the pirate ship of the Spade Pirates. Everyone turned around and walked towards the Death God. Ace's group looked complicated, turned their heads to look at their ship, and there was a trace of sadness in their eyes. Okay, come on, kid. Bucky patted Ace on the shoulder, understanding his heart. Turning around, Ace suddenly shouted. Spade Pirates. In. The crew behind him shouted, with complex and sad expressions in their eyes. Salute. Ace shouted loudly, tears bursting out of his eyes, and then the group of them all knelt on their knees, their foreheads pressed against the deck. Thank you for taking us here. Thank you. The Spade Pirates roared loudly with tears in their eyes. At this moment, when their foreheads were close to the deck and their hearts were completely integrated with the ship, various images began to reverberate in their minds. For the first time, the crowd got excited about the boat and they yelled. For the first time, when standing on the boat to celebrate, singing loudly and dancing strangely. For the first time, the pride after defeating the enemy is full of pride, condoning the blood on the face, but it is difficult to hide the beating of the heart. For the first time, under the roar of Changfeng, they ran on the sea and escaped the pursuit of the Marines. They exhaled a long breath. This ship accompanies them to travel too far and too far. Now, seeing that it has begun to sink slowly, how can Ace and his group not be sad? There are too many stories, too many for them to tell. Thank you. With a final shout, the group of Spades stood up slowly, with tears streaming down their faces, their expressions solemn and sad. Turning around, the Spade Pirates got on the Reaper. The flaming wooden boat finally couldn't sink any longer, and with a bang, it fell into the sea. The damage is too serious, I can't do anything about it. On the bow of the Reaper, Yang Qing shook his head. Although his fruit ability is powerful, he has not yet reached the point where he can change the world and reverse time. A pirate's affection for a ship can be said to be the same as that of a partner. Especially when the pirate ship produced the ship spirit, that kind of bond was even more difficult to give up. With a complicated face, Yang Qing remembered the death god at this moment. Are you there? He whispered in his heart. I'm here. This chapter is not over, click on the next page to continue reading. Westlaw. A roar echoed in his mind, and a childlike voice came. With a smile on Yang Qing's face, he said slightly, thank you for your always waiting, I really thank you. Yes, I am very happy to be with you. The voice of the ship elf was very sweet and gentle. Yeah. Nodding, Yang Qing stopped talking with the ship spirit and looked at Ace's group who had already boarded the ship. Drizzt put his arms around Ace's neck and said with a deliberate smile, boy, how about a gamble? Let's see who loses and who wins. See you again after a long time. Why don't you have a luxurious gamble? If you win, my brother will teach you to become stronger for free. Quote. Cut. Ace turned his head away, too lazy to answer, but turned his head again after a while. Really taught me to become stronger. Hearing the word, strengthened, the Spades group all restrained their sadness first, and looked at Drizzt in amazement. Of course you have to become stronger, otherwise, depending on your current style, in the new world, I am afraid that even those elite crew members are not opponents. How can you convince the public? You know, pirates are not good people. Dylan said with a grim expression.